Hey, bird nerds, how are you? I feel like I have to say welcome back, but I mean, look, it's only been a week, hasn't it? But I'm still feeling so out of practice, and I'm gonna drop the veil a bit today and talk about some of the struggles of consistently producing content for such a long time. I don't want to crawl too far up my own bum about it, but I have been getting some comments and some very nice messages from people saying, "Hey Grant, where's the bird emergency? What's happened to the podcast?" So, um, should I start there, or should I start with the fellow behind me? And by the way, I do want you to let me know where you are watching from. I hope you're not in some of the regions that have been battling bushfires, grass fires variously here in eastern Australia. Um, Looks like the Mallee country is severely at risk today. Um, Hello, Stan. Stan on Kangaroo Island. Oh, Stan, I'm glad you're here because I wanted to. I meant to reach out and send you a message over the weekend. Tell us about the cafe fire that I noticed had taken place on Kangaroo Island. Do you actually want to come on and give people an update on what the fire season looks like on an isolated community like Kangaroo Island, and what the impact of a major business burning down is like in an isolated community. Naomi, hello Naomi, how are you? Naomi? Are you at the foothills today, or where are you coming from as you sit today? Now, I suppose I should tell everyone too, if you're new and you haven't joined in on the bird emergency yet. I realised I haven't done this for so long. I don't know if people are dipping in to the replays on YouTube and going, what is this? Who is this? What's going on? Okay, the bird emergency started as a podcast focusing on rare and endangered birds around the world, but not making it a, hey, here's the, I don't know, let's use the swift parrot. The swift parrot. Where are we? I don't know. Am I ever going to get this right? There we go. Swift parrot behind me. One of the most critically endangered birds in Australia. But I don't want to tell you all about the swift parrots' breeding habits and everything. I want to talk about the people on all of these kind of projects who are helping to make a difference. That's what the Bird Emergency started out as, an audio podcast. And over the times, we've tried to build a nice little community, people like Naomi and Stan and everyone else who joins in, to talk about birds. And we scope it out to, I mean, if you're involved in bird watching, you probably love birds and are worried about conservation. Photography ties into that. Tourism ties into that. So try and pull all the threads together. This is a regular spot on a Monday. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's me with Dr. Holly Parsons from BirdLife Australia talking about urban birds. And sometimes I will rope in a guest. But midday in my time zone, which is Melbourne in Australia, I fire up on a Monday pretty much every week. Was I here last week? I can't remember. So let's have a look. Naomi, you can of course join in, and that's what the point of the live streams is. Please, if you are here with us live, tell me, and tell everyone, share where you are watching from. Now, Naomi is in the Blue Mountains. The Blue Mountains, of course, are the mountain range to the west of Sydney. Now, thanks, Stan, for that comment. Yes, we are going to be talking about voting for birds. Can you do that? Yes, you can do that. We're voting for birds, and I will also be voting for the swift parrot. I did. Just excuse me. Someone's just commented to me direct through the socials, so I'll just let them know. I'll just let them know. This is great, riveting viewing, isn't it? I'm just going to let them know that I'm live so they can join in. Sorry, I am a live stream now. I am on a... They obviously aren't looking at all my posts this morning. How do you spell stream? I'll put the link in. How's that? That would be a good idea. I'm going to assume that they're going to be more likely to be on Facebook than anything else. So let's do that. Can I do two things at once? Doesn't look like it. I want to discuss briefly this whole idea of using the Bird of the Year competition. Is it a competition run by the Guardian Australia to raise the profile of certain birds? So let's talk about that. Let's put that in. There we go. I'll just do the last one because they might want to do Facebook, right? Or YouTube. So should we be pushing one of our really endangered birds above another? I was thinking about that. Is it problematic tell me what you think. Um, I noticed some really nice input on the app formerly known as Twitter today, um, and what got me thinking about this was I think it was First Dog on Moon, who I think is Tasmanian, and they were advocating for the tawny frogmouth, but I wonder um, whether people with a platform and with a voice should be really all honing in on the swift parrot. And I would be surprised that people in Tasmania would probably be voting for anything but the swift parrot. What do you guys in the Riot Squad? And again, for newcomers, or if you're watching the replay, the Riot Squad is the live audience who are commenting and giving me suggestions. Why the Riot Squad? Collective noun for a group of kookaburras is a riot. So there we are. That gets in there. So let's bring this up. I think what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about, and what the comments are about for voting for a bird this morning or whatever, is the Guardian Australia is running the Bird of the Year, which they do every 2 years. Last time in 2021, actually, is it every 2 years? Yeah. The superb fairy wren, or the superb blue wren, which in that diagram is the lovely pastel blue and black fellow, and it is a fellow, it's a male there, one, but just tipped out the gang cockatoo, which is that cockatoo on the bottom row with the red head, and the tawny frogmouth. And it's not surprising that they would be so popular. The superb fairy wren, such a common and well-known garden bird in parts of Australia. Gang cockatoo, quite emblematic, and there's obviously a move on to make them more well known because of the threat to them, partly as a result of habitat clearing, logging, urban sprawl, but also they were severely impacted by a couple of years of intense bushfires in their habitat over their range. But Stan, let's look at your comment here. Stan's written, for those who will listen later. Yes, I think highlighting the plight of the most endangered bird would accomplish the most for conservation. But it got me thinking more about this, and I was late getting going this morning because I was having a conversation with one of my neighbours who I haven't met before, from the other side of the park, and I was out there watching some red wattlebirds, a group of red wattlebirds feeding a fledgling, and at the same time viciously driving off some noisy miners from this patch of flowering gums on the near side of the park. And he was interested in me looking up into these trees. And he came over to have a chat, and I pointed out what I was looking at, and I pointed out the how aggressive the red wattlebirds were right down the bottom end of the park, driving away any nectar-feeding bird, and that there was a group of about 7 or 8 of them teaming up to keep the noisy miners out, and also the New Holland honeyeaters that were encroaching on the territory. And we got talking, and he asked me what I did, and I told him about the podcast and about today's live stream, and and we're just talking about some of the issues. And he asked me a question that I get asked a lot, and my answer now is different than it used to be. Thanks, Naomi. I'm glad you're voting for the Swift Parrot. We'll I'll put the link up in a second too for the for this. Let me just get that there and create this while I'm on the fly. So people used to ask me, or people do ask me, what can I do? And I used to say that you need to vote for a Labor government. We need a Labor government in power in this country. And I was pretty confident that some things might change. But we've been sorely let down here. And I highlighted, I think, last week or the week before, the way governments around the country are changing legislation to make protest harder. And when they are making protests harder, it's usually anyone in the environment space. It's where they tend to push to reduce the effectiveness of direct action protests. So I don't know, and that's a ridiculously long link too, by the way. Let me read out where you can find it. If you go to theguardian.com/environment/2023/SEP SEP/13, just go to theguardian.com/environment on the Guardian Australia site. The geolocation should take you there. You should be able to find that, I'm sure, if you just search Bird of the Year. It will take you right there. So I just want to get a count too on this. There we go. Sorry, I was just seeing if there were more comments today than there were last week on that page, and no, there aren't. So is this, in a way, even though we're concerned and we want things to happen, is this mere performative action, a bit like what, I've always been really critical about the threatened species hub bake-off, because it gets headlines and it gets people talking, but I'm not sure. And look, tell me tell me if I'm missing the point here, but I can't think of any real action that the new government has taken to ensure the survival of the swift parrot. The main state governments and territory government that could also preserve habitat: Tasmania, Victoria, South Australia, ACT. I can't think of the immediate reduction of logging in the habitat in the forests or the woodlands that they rely on. I don't think that's happened. I'm not sure that clearing for agricultural or expansion of townships with box woodlands on the extremities of those townships, I'm not sure that those remnant parcels of suitable habitat are being explicitly protected by any of those governments. And we're now, you know, it's not new. It's not new. Some of the forests that the koalas require haven't been protected for the Great Koala National Park that the New South Wales government pushed as a major priority for them, for the ALP at that time. Swift parrots also benefit from the retention of those forests that that are largely made up of eucalypts. I don't know. Tell me, just tell me what you think. Are we just treading water? Are the governments that we thought were progressive and committed, are they really progressive and committed? I mean, I was happy that there seems to be some movement for duck shooting coming to an end in Victoria, but the government didn't demonstrate strength and just end it. It's gone to a committee for comment and all that, but we've been having these comments for years and years, these discussions for years and years and years and years. We know where the shooters are going to line up on it, and we know where the rest of the community lines up on it. Excuse me. Hello, Cocky, by the way. So even though the mainstream sort of has moved past a lot of these pastimes, and I think if people knew about the swift parrot, they would ask for immediate action. But I can't see where that immediate action is going to come from. Comment from Stan. I've been very disappointed with Labor federally and state. Very weak and business as usual. Well, I think the key term there, Stan, is business, right? I mean, does the swift parrot have 10 years? For a transitional period and blah, 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 all the bullshit they'll trot out. Even if they made an announcement now, they wouldn't end the destruction of habitat, be it in the breeding grounds in Tasmania and be it in the feeding grounds on the mainland. If you're new to this conversation and you don't know about the swift parrot is a migratory parrot. It breeds in Tasmania, and then in the summer, in the warmer months, and then it migrates to the mainland and needs feeding opportunities here. Migration takes a lot of energy for the birds to be able to do it, and if they arrive on the mainland and their historical regular feeding grounds no longer have any trees in them, or if they've been replaced by maybe a plantation species that doesn't flower at the right time or doesn't offer the right kind of flowers, those birds can't just go, oh, well, we'll head off for another couple of 100/1,000 kilometres in the hope that they'll find something to eat. Those birds will die, or at the very least be weakened to the point that when they make it back to their breeding grounds, they may not be in a condition to breed. So that means the recruitment the following year is less. So the population will decrease without the birds being killed, for want of a better terminology. you not only need to increase numbers to maintain a population, you need to increase it to preserve it. And, you know, if there's nowhere for them to live/feed, that's a zero-sum game, I think. So I'm really sorry to be such a Debbie Downer on that one, but we'll get into that. Naomi, yes, business and money. You are dead set. I used to think that they cared about votes. I don't. I don't believe it's really about votes anymore. Oh, Martin, I'm glad you brought this one up. G'day, Martin. Only 1,000 palm cockatoos left. Now, yeah, they're not big. They're not quick breeders. Because cockatoos are birds that live a long time, their sexual maturity is often a bit longer. Now, I don't know specifically for palm cockatoos, but I'm guessing it's probably 5, 6, maybe 10 years before they're sexually mature. They need big hollows because they're big birds. Big hollows need to be in fairly large trees that may take, well, in an Australian context, several hundred years to be available. Fires are a big problem in limited habitat. The palm cockatoo is very specific in Australia. It lives in the far north tip of Cape York in Queensland. And there is another conflict, and wind farms are throwing up these kind of conflicts. Wind farms do kill birds. Are they a major killer of birds compared to lots of other things? No, they're not. But they do kill some birds. And if they kill birds in areas where very rare birds, if each bird is extremely valuable just because of its scarcity, then that seems to be a dumb decision. But the other thing that happens in, especially in this Queensland context, and Martin, because you're up there, please throw in some comments. But my take on it with these wind farms, and particularly in Queensland, is that the wind farms get put on public land where it's available, because then nobody has to be compensated for the use of the land. And instead of putting it on private holdings or lease holdings that have already been deforested and denuded, they put them in forested country, rainforest country, that is publicly owned, because there's no compensation due to specific people, and it's a good business decision. So Martin, let me know if I'm on the wrong track with that. But that's my thought about these regions specifically in North Queensland. I know it's a really big problem with at least 2 that I'm aware of that are proposed, and a couple that have already been built. And when these bad decisions about location are made, that gives people who want to say, "Oh, we shouldn't have wind farms. We shouldn't have wind farms because they're contributing to the loss of species." I think we should be more general, and I think, Martin, you made the point. Naomi's got the update, sexual maturity 7 to 8 years for palm cockatoos. So hopefully they can find a mate to go to the dance and start breeding at that age. Martin, as I understand it, with the destruction of the habitat for these North Queensland wind farms, is that they're generally largely sited on public land rather than privately owned land already. like they're carving out bits of state forests or national parks or other classifications of reserves. Um, I'm happy to be corrected. I haven't looked at the status of all of the land, but I did look at some, and I certainly looked at some that have already been built. You can let me know on that. Um, do let me know. Oh, by the way, if anyone is watching on Twitter, uh, um, you can't comment or join in on Twitter, unfortunately. And I don't have the Twitter app open. I've already got two screens. I don't want another one just specifically for Twitter. So if you do want to join in on Twitter, please come in on Facebook or Twitch or YouTube. Thebirdemergency.com / either Facebook / YouTube / Twitch will find you there, or you can also join in on LinkedIn if you follow me on LinkedIn. So anyway, there's enough of that ad. So I don't know if we can go much further on the idea of what value the Bird of the Year competition is, other than a PR point of view. I mean, let's say the Swift Parrot wins. What we have 2 days of coverage, maybe a round of a few, the Sunrise program or the Today Show, and they'll talk about it and they'll put a picture of the nice pretty bird up. And then Australia will be kicked out of the World Cup in rugby, and some high-profile AFL footy player will get picked up being drunk in a car or something, and it'll disappear. But what will happen for the Swift Parrot? Is the Tasmanian government likely to end forest logging in the breeding grounds? Are the Labor government in Victoria or New South Wales likely to do further preservation of the boxwood lands and other necessary habitat? I don't know. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? So that's a bit of the conundrum, I must say. And let's segue into what's been going on with me and why I haven't been so visible on social media, particularly on the app known as Twitter. I did get into it a bit today, and it was nice to see the retweets and whatnot. But it takes a lot of energy to be visible all the time. And I really enjoy the making friends, making acquaintances, learning about what everybody's doing. But I'm getting really disheartened about the impact that is possible, and particularly with Twitter. And I want to speak mostly about Twitter. I'm not going to leave the platform. I was thinking about it, but for those of you who interact with me frequently on Twitter, I'll keep doing First Seen and Heard, and I'll try to keep up with what people are doing. But most of the people that I follow on Twitter are not visible in my feed like they were. It actually takes more time to find out what people are doing. So I'm going to shift most of my activities over where the engagement is, and where I know that having the material on YouTube and Facebook reaches new people. And that's what I'm always been concerned about, is reaching new people. So my social media stuff will be really Instagram and Threads will keep going. I'll be doing more exclusive stuff with TikTok and with YouTube. And look, I'll give some Twitch stuff a go, but they'll when I'm streaming to Twitch only, it's going to be a different kind of material. My aim is to find new people who are interested in conservation. So I might go back and rehash some of the things that if you've been with me on the bird emergency for a long time and even back from the beginning, a lot of the people that I spoke to early on, I'm going to resurface and trying to get them reintroduced to new people. So there'll be, replays and things like that, and some commentary. And on Twitch particularly, there'll be a lot more about of using the live chat um, and perhaps doing collaborations with people who aren't really in the conservation space but are more in the activist space. So if you're really interested in that kind of content, I'll probably stream it also to YouTube. I just don't know. I might just see how it goes. Make sure that you do get involved in Twitch. There's some great political stuff on Twitch, apart from everyone playing games and stuff. But you don't have to interact with stuff you're not interested in. So get involved with me there. I've just mapped out the regular timetable for the habitat gardening. Hopefully in the next day or two we'll get the October dates locked in for the deep dive with Ricky, and that will continue. I really enjoyed talking to Ricky and having the opportunity to see what she's doing. Stan will get to that comment in a sec. Thanks. So I'll be doing the habitat gardening on Saturday mornings at 9:30. That will be like a regular block, and that'll be a real attempt to break out into that gardening kind of market and try to force some conservation down into people's consciousness who are more interested in the just gardening. And I want to use my skills as a horticulturist and maybe some problem solver to hook into a market that I don't think has really been done. It's still being done on radio. I mean, I know the gardening shows on the ABC and all that are still popular, local ABC. But I think there's a real opportunity to do it as an interactive platform, and at the same time, while I can be talking about Banksias and Grevilleas and flowering gums, I can also be talking about the swift parrot, regent honeyeaters, and other birds. I mean, so that's an opportunity that I really want to take up. But preparing for shows takes time, so some of the other things will have to give. Of course, Holly is probably not letting the cat out of the bag. Holly will be taking some time off next year, so I'm looking for a regular to sort of do the urban birds spot with me on a Monday, and that might give me the opportunity to make the Monday show a little bit more global. Be interested, because you guys in the live audience now, the people that interact with me regularly and sort of follow me as much as anyone else. What would you think about that, or would you want me to find a replacement for that segment for the period that Holly is away? Would you want me to find someone sort of Australian, or my thought, to let you in on it, is to find someone, so I can rotate it around, is to find someone in the UK, someone in the US, maybe in different parts of the US, someone in Central, South America. English speaking obviously is the limitation there. Someone in East Asia, someone in Central Asia, someone in Africa, someone in New Zealand, someone in India, to talk about urban birds and to try and learn from each other about how we interact with urban birds, what the threats are, what the opportunities are uh, to provide habitat, good habitat, maybe educate each other on things like feeding birds, providing nesting opportunities, retaining habitat, trying to replace habitat. So yeah, I'm gonna get into some of this. All right, Stan, let's go. Stan's given up on Twitter. Uh, yeah, um, uh, I haven't given up on Twitter, but it's just uh, I grew rapidly there while I was active and while I was being an activist and while I was promoting other people, which is really what I found Twitter to be fantastic for, is that I could highlight other people with interesting views or doing really good work and it could help them build. But now, if you're not a crypto bro or a far right sympathizer or a simp of the Moon Man, uh, I should call him the Mars Man, shouldn't I? You just don't get surface. So if there's no opportunity for growth there, I find it difficult to sort of spend as much time reading and finding people and amplifying them. I used to spend a lot of time on in and on my Twitter feed. I don't think that can happen now. Stan, do you want to jump into the feed? I want to. Would you like to? We'll talk about Kangaroo Island, but I've also really because you're producing content. I'd really like to talk, workshop this idea about what is working and what isn't working. So just let me know if you want to jump in, and I'll pop the link in, and you can come in. Naomi, what's Naomi said? Uh, yeah, I may have let the cat out of the bag. I don't know. It's very difficult for me to reach out and ask people to be a regular contributor into a segment if they know that the segment is already sort of somebody else's. But yeah, I I hope it's not a state secret. Don't spread it around too much. Look, I think it's just a matter of taking some leave, and people do that, so that's fine. Uh, um, uh, 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 yeah. Okay, Stan. Thanks. I see that. I will pop this link in. Um, I'll pop this in. And look, today, where are you? You're on YouTube, Stan. Okay, so I'll post this to YouTube. Um, so just pop in whenever you're ready. Um, yeah. Naomi, yeah, great. Let's get back to your comment while I'm not distracted. And sorry, I'm darting all over the place. I've got a couple of different screens, and I'm looking for some things too. Um, yeah, I like the international. Okay, so Naomi doesn't mind the international thing, but then we get down to Martin. Um, oh, no. Great. Here's Stan. Stan's in too. Let's change. The which one we go. Let's go this one because you're way back there. There we are. I'll just change my camera a little bit. There we go. Hi, Stan.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Maybe I'll just pop Martin's comment down.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to mute. Hang on, let me mute the. There we go. Sorry.
That's cool.
Better?
I can hear you fine. I'm pretty sure everyone else can. Stan the man. Gee, that's a big. That's a big call. Oh, did you see? Did you see Hugh Possingham's post on the app formerly known as Twitter when he was asking us all to appreciate sun dews today? and because even the small can be really, really beautiful or something. I don't remember exactly. I just said, yeah, size doesn't matter. So there we go. That just got me thinking. With you, Stan the man, I'm thinking there's a bit of braggadocio there going on, mate. Um, all right, Martin, I'm going to come back to your comment, but first, Stan, tell us about uh, the fire on Kangaroo Island, and tell us what the impact is, and how's this sort of high fire danger for this week looking for you guys? Oh, we can't hear you. What have you muted? You've gone quiet.
Um,
There we are. I can
um,
hear you now. Just come closer wherever your microphone is. Uh,
all right, I'm
there
right
we
in
are.
front of
That's
my.
better.
I can't really get much closer.
Oh, it's
Let me
very
try.
muddy. It's very
Um,
muddy. What's happening? I hear you better when you're
I'm trying to think
back.
I've got a microphone. Hang on.
All right. Well, while Stan's doing that, let's put Martin's comment up because I think there's a good point there. Uh, now, Martin, there's a couple of points there. Um, I I'm not really into reaching out to a big audience. Like I don't want to be internet famous, and but what I do want to do is reach people who might change their behaviours in some way to further the aims that I think we all have in either preserving or increasing habitat or making some sort of difference that we can do as individuals. Uh, yeah, and you made the point about finding an Australian bird nerd with some international as well. The problem with finding someone regular in Australia is I need to find someone who is able to front up at a sort of a regular time on a regular day, and that's really hard for a lot of the people that we all know and love and want to speak to because they're either out in the field uh, or their bird their bird activities are not their paid gig. So looking for someone on a midday on a weekday in Australia means it's got to be someone whose paid gig is either. Well, Stan's dropped off. I hope you're coming back in a minute, Stan. Um, uh, so yeah, the paid gig is something else, and that can be difficult um, to get people who can come in regularly at that time. So, Martin, I take that on board, and I am certainly. I did have a few people that I ran by Holly, and I've reached out to a couple of people, and so far either no response or they haven't been able to commit. So we'll keep going. Um, so I really think that the Monday with Holly format works really nicely because it gets a different perspective than my own, which I think can be really, really great. So we go with that. I don't know what's going on with my screen here. Anyway, um, uh, tell me, Martin, and for everyone, feel free to make some suggestions for who might be a good seat warmer while Holly's gone. I'd really like to use this regular Monday slot, even if it isn't what would normally have been the fortnightly with Holly, to sort of get more people into the fold. So throw some suggestions at me and let me know. Naomi, what else did you say? A 3-person panel with an Australian. Yeah, uh, that would be fun. I love doing the panels. I love doing panels. It's excuse me, gee, it's gone a bit tepid. Um, I really love doing panels. It's a lot of fun, and you can get some uh, some of the input that you wouldn't have normally got. What's going on? Something's going on with my Am I still live? Are you still getting me out there? Let me know because Stan dropped off really quickly, and I'm getting some lag and something weird's going on with my screen. Oh, here's Stan back. Hello, Stan.
Hey, can you hear me better?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I'm on my
and
iPad now.
you're mobile on the pad. That's cool.
Yeah.
So Stan, I've just been covering off some of the issues about finding guests and who might be a good one. There we go. Put your camera back on. We like seeing you walking around.
I'm trying to switch it around so I can do the front view, so I can show you the garden or whatever.
Oh, cool. We'll find a good spot. Now here we go. I'm just gonna run through some of these other comments. Oh, what's that making all that noise there, Stan?
New Hollands.
New Holland's chatting away. Are they feeding young? Is that what we've?
Yeah. So I probably got about 20 residents in my yard, and I don't know. They seem to go off just amongst themselves a lot. I can kind of tell the Currawong or Hawk. They really go psycho then, but at the moment I think
they're just having a chin wag. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we are. See, that's part of the joy of being out in the garden. Stan Martin's just confirming that Holly's only going on a break. Yes, she is. Now, Martin, that's a really good thought you've got there about the Australian bird life groups around the country. And yes, they are in tune with what's going on in their part of the country. I'll certainly be interviewing people, and particularly people I met on the trip recently. The issue with the with getting people who are volunteers in places like the regional birdlife groups who are all just volunteers is that middle of the day on a working day in a working week is finding people who are not obligated to be doing something else. But I'm going to be reaching out to them as well there. And yeah, I one of the opportunities that I'm getting with the habitat gardening is that I can reach out to nurseries and expert growers and landscape gardeners, landscape designers, landscape architects, landscape contractors all over the country, and indeed that will also stretch out to other parts of the world, so that we can broaden the usefulness. That's what I want it to be. I want it to be useful for people. So we'll get there. Hold on a second, Stan. One more suggestion from Naomi. Do people know Two Mad Photographers? I don't know Two Mad Photographers, but I'm just going to star that comment so that I will follow that up shortly and make sure I do look them up and chase them down. Certainly, I really do want people to suggest who you think would fit into the general orbit, and we'll chase them up. So, Stan, let's get into the fire. What happened?
So yeah, it was the third structure fire we've had in a restaurant in 3 months or 4 months. This one was wiring, I think. That's what everyone reckons. So it was wiring in the roof, and it had straw insulation. So apparently the electricians warned the owners that they need to do something, and they never did. And then it lit up, and then they put it out. I mean, it pretty much wrecked the building, burnt through the roof. And then 4 days later, it caught alight again. Yeah, it's right in the middle of town, so it's not really a good look to have a burnt-out building. Kind of looks like Ukraine or something, right? A war zone in the middle of town. So, and then we had another one last month burn. It just burnt in the ceiling, the Odd Plate restaurant. And then 2 months ago, the Shy Wren, which is a fitting name for this show, also caught fire as well. So,
So there's no suggestion that it's a targeted
No,
attacks
so
on hospitality.
Channel 7 came here and like I was so disgusted with them, like went with that angle and then they were like saying, are we going to go with this angle? Can you say this on, like, they're saying that to the owners. So no, it's just it's just coincidence. It's just wiring. And so this one was wiring. The odd plate was spontaneous combustion of tea towels in a dryer.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the Shy Wren, I don't think they know, or they never really tell us anyway, but I think it was probably electrical as well, a fridge or something like that.
Stan, what I can hear in the background at your place, if that was coming through my window, I would be saying, "Oh, you've got a blackbird in the garden there. Have you got a blackbird in the garden, or is that honey eater calls that I don't get here?"
No, blackbirds have got heaps of I've got like
Okay. Okay, well, it is
blackbirds. Yeah, they breed here as well. I've got all like young ones, old ones.
Yeah, well, the males are singing all night here now, so well, I'm glad I could pick that out because I could hear
the males get in fights and then they flop around in the bushes. I'm like, what the hell is going on there? And it's just these blackbirds. I don't know what they do, but they like, I'm assuming it's not a male and a female. I'm pretty sure it's males, but anyway.
Yeah, no, that's the males singing their heart out like that, and the females are generally just doing that clucking call at this type.
But this is actually
yeah,
this is fighting where they actually like flopper, like they're engaged in mortal combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over very small patches of good land. Oh, that's too exciting news. I'll tell you this too, Stan. I think we found a bird bath in the hard rubbish down the street. Not a great bird bath. It's quite shallow. It was an awful colour, but we turned it. My housemate sprayed it terracotta colour, and we put it out. And it's been out for about 3 weeks, and now the honey eaters started bathing in it about a week ago. But now the magpies are coming in and drinking from it. So it takes about a month or so for birds to find your water, but when they do, they rely on it. So now we've got to fill it up every morning. So, Stan, from the point of view in a small community like Kangaroo Island, how important is like a cafe, and that most recent one particularly, to be taken? I mean, that'll probably be months and months until it's open again, will it? How important is it for the fibre of the community?
Yeah, it's pretty important. We've only got about, I don't know, half a dozen cafes, eateries, or maybe if you include the pubs, maybe. Oh, yeah. So anyway, but only 6 or 7. So losing it. But the good news is they're actually going into another vacant shop front on the main street. So they're supposed to do that as soon as today or tomorrow. I was supposed to go down there, but good. I think I'll probably just go down tomorrow and get it in next week's edition. But it is big. I mean, Kangaroo Island's a tourism place, and especially the busy time, and the fact that it's in such a prominent place right in the middle of town as well. So it's actually 2 cafes and a butcher in this latest one. So one of the cafes is moving across the road. The other one was operated by an older lady who's looking to retire anyway, so I doubt whether that one's going to reopen. And then the butchers, the butchers are going to be trying to do some mobile stuff, I think.
Oh, that's good. So they're not lost to the community. For people who haven't come across you before, Stan, plug the YouTube channel.
So my YouTube channel is Kangaroo Island TV. I've just bought an electric car, and I'm thinking of driving it around Australia and maybe changing my YouTube channel, pivoting it to do a bit more of that. But at the moment, it's Kangaroo Island TV, and it's just stuff about life on Kangaroo Island, also through my work as the journalist at the Islander newspaper. So yeah, that's me.
Well, depending on which way you go, which direction you go, you can pick me up in Mount Gambier and I'll bring the Starlink gear, and you can do the Victorian leg with me as a passenger, and we'll live stream everywhere we go.
Are you in Mount Gambier now?
No, but
Oh, you mean
I'd
just on the border as I'm coming across?
Yeah, I'd come across maybe I'd come across to Adelaide. I don't know. Just as easy to do, just as easy to get to Adelaide as it is to get to Mount Gambier. But yeah, I'm open to any kind of collab like that, and I spent the money on the Starlink stuff. I wouldn't mind finding a fun way to use it, depending on what you had in mind. But if you're doing something, I'd be keen to do some kind of collaboration. So
all right, I'm looking at driving right the way across. Next, like, I might take some time off the paper and just do some traveling. So, yeah.
Which way would you plan to go? Would you go up the east coast and back around the west coast? Would that be your idea?
I'm coming. I've already booked a trip. I'm coming over to see my family in New South Wales in December, and then I'll March my 6th-year anniversary at the paper. So I might resign sometime after that, like June middle of next year, and then I want to go across to WA to see where I was born and all that, and then I also want to go down to Tasmania.
Cool. Well. Well, if you want to do some kind of collab, let me know. Even if I don't sit in the passenger seat, there's some really good opportunities to catch up wherever you are that might be significant, and do and do something. Talk about the locations, Tasmania especially.
Yeah, it's not a you'll be happy to know.
Hey,
it's a Volvo. Oh, it's a Polestar. Kind of a Volvo, or made by Volvo. So, it's pretty flash car. It's 650 k's range, but it doesn't get that get about 500 if you're doing 110.
Well, when it's funny when people talk about the range, right, and they go, "Oh, it only gets 400 k's or something." Well, 400 k's is, if you're driving from Melbourne, that gets you up to sort of Finley, or that sort of country. You're getting past the Murray, and that's where most people are going to stop, probably for the night anyway. By the time they've had their lunch stop and their couple of wee stops, and if they're travelling with kids, you've had to have a few breaks. So that's as far as you're going to get every day anyway. So yeah, it's cool. Stan, I'm just going to put some more comments up while we're talking. Naomi has also put a bird bath in. New bird bath, let's see. It used to be an old fruit bowl, nothing better. Just sat it on some Besser blocks, or what do they say in the States? Breeze blocks or something, cinder blocks. Very good idea. Yes, you need it in a position where you can watch from the veranda or something. I can watch the birds visiting while I'm sitting there watching the TV, or where I sit and have my coffee in the morning when I'm not outside. Let's see. A whipbird, well, that's a very good, getting them in to have a bath, and Naomi's partner got some photo shots. That's good. I agree. It's great to see them being used. Martin, I guess that comment means you're getting a few more species, new species, using your bird bath. I think we might do you've got some watering points in your garden too, haven't you, Stan? You got.
I'm working on it. I just can't work out how to turn this camera around, but
just turn the iPad around. Yeah,
that's what I've got at the moment. It's like an oven tray.
Yeah, really good idea.
The birds are loving the loquats.
The blackbirds love that.
And then I want to turn this into. I want to cut this rainwater tank in half. Can you see it?
The square one, yeah.
Yeah, cut that in half.
Yep.
Yeah. And then have that as like a frog pond, bird bath kind of thing. It'll be pretty deep, but put goldfish in there too.
Well, the other thing too, if it is fairly deep, is you can just rig up some, you know, ARC fencing or something, with a couple of inches below the waterline, and just pop some rocks or something on it, so that birds can land on it and water there. And at the same time, the frogs have still got their habitat, and the fish have still got their habitat. So,
Oh, yep, that's a good idea. Can you
yeah,
see all the
it's
low
pretty.
spot?
Yeah, well, do you get any pigeons or doves coming in for that, or is it just the blackbirds?
I get they haven't found them yet, but I get the rosellas.
Oh yeah, coming in and eating.
Rainbow lorikeets and
Yeah, taking 2 bites and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah,
So they ruin.
They come in.
So they ruin the fruit.
Yeah. Even the wattlebirds like it, and blackbirds.
Yeah. Especially when they're overripe, the wattlebirds will go and get into it when they're nice and mushy. Yeah, no, very nice. Well, are you making like a jam?
I haven't actually tried to do that before.
Oh,
so
you should. It's pretty good.
I do like it, but I'm on a diet, so I'm not supposed to be eating bread. And what do you do with jam if you're not eating bread?
Well, I'll tell you how I quite like it jam if I find a good one. Celery. Put it in the middle of celery and munch on that. It's like that's a really good way to eat peanut butter too if you don't want to eat bread.
Yeah.
So just in the middle of celery. So have your celery sticks. Also, zucchini can be really bland if you're eating it raw, but it's pretty good if it's dipped in a savoury jam. So
yeah, you could. I could make like a chutney out of it or something. And
yeah.
Like,
well, that's what I'm calling it. That's what I'm calling the jam. Like it chutney. That's probably a better term.
Have it with like chicken breast and different stuff,
Yeah. Or your anything. But yeah, and if you do get the urge to have some bread, you just go and get some of the unleavened flatbread.
Low GI,
down at the go and get the Mission Foods have so many good ones in the supermarket.
Yeah, I've been buying those and making like bean burritos with them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good value. I can heartily agree. I should. Oh, where is it? I can't. No, it's on the other thing. I might independently send you the link of the book that I was using, and it was massively successful for me. I ended up putting on so much of the weight back that I had lost, but I'm back on track now, because when I was away, I was not eating what I normally did. So, Naomi's mentioned, this is probably how I would do it too. Naomi's mentioned as a side, as a condiment for tofu. I would agree, and sweet and sour marinade. I would definitely agree with that. Naomi, what has Martin got? Just be careful about the metal zinc poisoning from Gal water tanks. Yes, that is something to consider. Stan, what I used to do, I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I used to work for a firm that had retail shops that sold ponds and stuff, and I worked for Yates for a few years. And when we were creating or recommending creating ponds out of other items or pots or whatever, I always suggest people get that elasticized paint that you can, like pond sealer paint. And if you're going to use anything metal or anything that's been coloured, you go and use that so that you don't get any leaching into the water. And that's what I would recommend for Stan if you're using a Gal tank. So certainly, so you're not poisoning anything. Yeah, would be the go. It also helps regulate the temperature as well. That's the other thing you have to think about when you have any metal freestanding pond, and if it's getting direct sunlight, you can end up cooking your fish and cooking your frogs. If you're not recirculating the water, what I would probably suggest is that you put a submersible pump in the bottom and run it out to another container that's in the shade, so that you're taking the warm water out of that tank into another container which is in the shade, and you have another little submersible pump in that puts the water back in. So you're just recirculating the same amount of water, but that it's cool. It's having the opportunity to cool during the day. So, because you certainly don't want to have. Well, you can come back on a day. It doesn't have to be very hot either. You might come back on a day of 25 degrees if it's been in direct sun, and all your fish are dead and all your frogs are dead. And all your plants can be dead too. That's the other thing. So, yeah, be mindful of that. You really want to move the water around, and you want it to. Ideally, you want your water to be a constant temperature if you're going to have any kind of life staying in it. You don't want it to freeze, and you don't want it to get too hot. So there we are. There you go, Stan. I could have I could have charged you probably $500 for that if I was a landscape architect. Oh, Martin too. Was it Martin? You made the point earlier about Costa for habitat gardening. Yes, Costa will be invited. I'm not really sure whether Costa would be able to sort of pop in more than just a once-off interview guest with his commitments. I don't know what they are with the ABC, but yeah, certainly Costa's a friend of the show, so or has been. So yeah, I would love to have Costa on. If I could get him regularly, that would be amazing. But I'm not sure if someone who works 9 to 5 during the week would be happy to front up too often on a Saturday morning. Plus, I think Costa's always going to events and whatnot all over the country. He's amazing the way he promotes sustainability stuff, and yeah, that would be good. Naomi's also mentioned, this is for you, Stan. Make sure you get some silken tofu. I'm a firm tofu man, but certainly silken tofu. Yeah, I like silken tofu in soup, but when I'm like making main meals and things, I like the slab, the firm tofu slab, so you can fry it or grill it, and it still holds its texture. And yeah. What's happening in your garden apart from your New Holland honey eaters, Stan, and your pending pond project?
I should be starting to plant my wicking beds with tomatoes and summer crops, but I haven't done that. And if I'm going away, I'm wondering if I should bother, but I probably still will. I mean, one of the advantages of the wicking beds is that it holds the water in there. So, and I might just get someone to come and water the garden. But yeah, so that's the veggie side of things. But not much else in terms of the. I planted some wattle trees as screening plants, and
what did you plant?
I just went to the native plant nursery here, and they breed them from local seed.
Yep.
So they just straight wattles. I'm not sure what wattle they are.
I was wondering whether the Flinders Ranges wattle is actually naturally occurring Acacia itiophylla, whether that's a Kangaroo Island indigenous plant, or whether you've probably got black wattles and silver wattles growing there too.
Yeah, black wattle, I think, are similar. I mean, they're just your typical average wattle, with a little fuzzy yellow
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
there's
You both
only
dropped
there's
off.
only 800 or so species in Australia of the average wattle, Stan. So
I also planted 3 of those, the native, is it minya berries or like they're like a sweet berry, native berry
is it in on a shrub, a tree, or a climber?
shrub.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what that would be there, but there's so many, so many. Um, I might, we might have to feature your garden, Stan, on Habitat Gardening. Naomi's got a comment and a question here, Stan. Uh, Naomi was bushwalking with her friend, and the New Holland honeyeaters were dive bombing her friend. Do they do that to you, Stan? Um,
They kind of that they don't really dive bomb, but they will kind of flock and like come up, like not dive bomb you, but like get, if you get too close, they don't really fly away necessarily. They'll just kind of
yeah,
stand there, hold their ground, and quit it. But I've never had actually one dive bomb me.
yeah. I would be thinking if you're being dive bombed, you're probably either directly adjacent to a nest or a fledgling, because that's when around here they try and get your attention, and then like they'll sit on a fence or something trying to get you
Guide
to
you away.
pay
Yeah.
attention to them, where a fledgling might be in the shrub you just walked past. So
I've
I
been
think that's what that behaviour notes. So
I've been watching the fledglings. It's amazing. They're so tiny. Like they must have just hopped out the nest. They hardly have any proper feathers yet, and they're sitting in the loquat tree in the branches, and the parents are coming, going, and feeding them. But they tiny little birds. Yeah.
yeah, and that that's a good observation, because they will pop out of the nest when they like the ones here. They're only just fledging too. Uh, I just got. Hey Barb, if you're watching, I just got your note on Twitter. Good on you. I've been checked out a bit too. So hello, Barb. Barb from Tasmania. Yeah, the ones fledging here, Stan. They have their primaries and secondaries on their wings seem to be quite developed, so they can flutter around, but they've got these scrawny pin feathers on the rest of their body, and they look just
Mm.
they're really ugly, but they can still get around. So it's good on them. Uh, so yeah, no. There we go. I saw your comment too. So yeah, minya berries. Okay. Let me just look at my other screen, and I'll find out what they are and see if I can impart some knowledge. Minya berries, Australia. Minya berries. Let's have a look.
It
Also,
says it's a native current.
yeah, I was going to say native current. I'm looking for
I think they have
uh,
other names too.
I'm looking for the Latin name, but I'm not seeing it.
Antidesma eristrae.
There we are. Well, there we go. I'm looking at a Bush Foods site. It's the first thing that came up. Very sweet with a crunchy little seed inside. Makes your tongue go purple. Do your varieties make your tongue go purple, Stan?
I've just
Because
planted them, so
okay,
yeah.
okay. Um, yeah, I don't think they're. I don't think they're on sort of down here, like on south of the divide, commonly around Melbourne. So yeah, it's not one uh, I know, but seeing gee, they look a bit like a coffee bush when they're
Mm.
fruiting. There we are, and they've got similar kind of leaves too. So there we go. That should be good. Any kind of berry or fruit is are really worthwhile in the garden. You will get Well, you might just be feeding blackbirds, but if you've got any kind of pigeons and parrots around, they'll generally want to get into it as well. So that'd be good. Sorry, I'm just checking it. I've got a few mentions going on from. Just looking at some of my mentions that are cropping up on my phone. Anyway, yeah, quite funny. Have you had any other interesting visitors to the garden, Stan? While we've got you on, and then I might.
No, the koala hasn't been here for a while. I can't think of any other unusual birds. I see a hawk fly every now and then, but I'm not sure which one it is.
Do you notice
also,
any? Do you get any owls or any frogmouths in your?
I saw a barn owl once.
Nice. Yeah.
But I've never seen any other thing. I just realised that they're not minia berries; they're medium berries.
Okay. Is that?
I just put it in the chat. There you go. Yeah.
Is that with a D? So midium
Midyum, M-I-D-Y-I-M. Yeah.
Okay.
Then the other one.
Okay. Oh, we'll medium berries. There we are. Let's have a look. Ostromertus dulcis. Yes, that's one of my absolute favourites. Ostromertus dulcis. There we go. That is one I do know. A rainforest plant, generally, or wet forest plant. But it's really good because you can get dwarf varieties and you can also get medium shrub varieties. They're the closest thing I can say for them is they're like a lily pilly, and yeah, easy to grow. In climates like yours, Stan, and mine, the key to success for them is really good mulching so they don't dry out. That's what, and also you don't want them in full sun, getting full sun in summer. Really nice container plant too, so you can move them around so they get part shade sort of all the year. If you've got different spots, great for a big balcony or veranda. So yeah, Ostromertus dulcis.
Yeah, I've got one.
Great
I've got
plant.
one on the balcony where I was. Sorry, I've got one on the balcony where I was sitting, and then I've got two in partial shade in the ground. So
yeah,
we'll see how they do.
Yep, they don't let them dry out. That's the main. But don't overwater them. But don't let them get bone dry. You'll lose them. So thick mulch if they're on the ground, and have you got them in plastic pot or terracotta pot on the veranda? Plastic, good. Don't have a wet saucer underneath them. Okay, you know those. Sometimes people, the wicking effect, keep water in the. Don't do that for the Ostromertus. They don't want wet feet, but they don't want to dry out. It seems like a seems like a contradiction, but no, it's good. So good. Okay, I'm getting quite a few messages coming through from people today. So that's really, you're not in the comments, but just in my cropping up on different apps, people sending me personal messages. So I didn't realise that I had been. People had so noticed my lack of input on the socials, but I have been finding it very hard to get motivated for a little while, just because felt like I was it Atlas who had to push the who had to push the rock up hills, or was that Sisyphus, or what was his name? Who's the one who?
I think Atlas carried. Atlas
had to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders Yeah, who's the one who
Up the
had to
hill.
roll the rocks up hills?
Sisyphus, I think.
Sisyphus. Yeah, I think that was right.
Yeah, Sisyphus.
Yeah. So there we go. Yeah, it just felt a little bit like that. So the thing I really wanted to get you on, Stan, was to talk about the social media
Well, you
that you're doing.
You dropped out a bit there for me.
Let's see if we catch up. Yeah, I think that's you and me. Naomi's just made sure we've got it right. Sisyphus. Are you hearing me now, Stan? I can see you being a bit choppy.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
hear
if
you.
it's
Yeah.
I don't know if it's you or me, but and Martin saying it's got new additions. 2 Wonga vines. Okay, Martin, I'm glad you mentioned that. Just around the corner, I have a front fence. One of my neighbours has the white variety and the golden bell variety of the Wonga vine, which is Pandaria pandarana. Super great climber if you want heavy cover on the south and southeast and east coast. Saw wild Wonga vine, Martin, up at Ungula at the car park there, looking across where we were told we guaranteed to see the Ungula honeyeater. Just across there were the Wonga vine covering all of the canopy, looking great and spectacular in flower. So they're great. Lion's ear. Now, lion's ear, I'm not sure what that is. Banksia bora. Banksia bora. That's not a species name I know. I'm just going to look it up. Or I think you might mean Banksia boweri. Let's have a look. Banksia bora. No, I'm not getting that. I think, are you talking, Martin, is it the big fluffy possum Banksia? The flower is a big grey shaggy flower. Banksia boweri would be my thought there. So also mentioned the buddleia. Yeah, buddleias are great for butterflies and other insects attracting. And Randeliton. I don't know Randeliton. I could get that. And Martin's mentioning could only get the white Pandaria pandarana. Martin, if you type in golden showers, and I know that's got some connotations, but that's what that cultivar of Pandaria pandarana is called. So Pandaria pandarana golden showers. You will see whether there's any available in your region where you might be able to track them down. Martin, I think you're talking there about Banksia boweri. Yeah, it's only a small bush, knee high, maybe mostly. I've really liked sandy soils. I had it growing in East Gippsland and flowering really thick, up to knee high, maybe a little bit more, spread to about 1.5 meters. Great plant. What are you typing away at 1,000,000 miles an hour, Stan?
Sorry,
That's all right.
Monday's my really busy day.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it's a public holiday, but that's when I put the paper together, so I have to have it done by 12 noon tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, stop me ranting. I wanted to get you on because you were mentioning that you're doing Reddit and what other socials. So I want to get an idea of what you find worthwhile and why Reddit.
So Reddit is an interesting one. I mean, it's more just mindless scrolling through stuff. It's not really posting and well, it is kind of interacting with people. I mean, that's what I miss about Twitter well, I guess even with Reddit, it is a way of keeping up to date with what's happening. It all depends what channels you follow and what communities you're mixing in.
Subreddits.
Yeah, what subreddits, sorry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are birding ones. I do notice that the wildlife ones never really have that much interaction compared to, I follow
politics.
electric cars and all that kind of politics,
Yeah.
funny photos and stuff like that. So Reddit, I mean, Yeah, it's none of them are really there as to what Twitter used to be, which is just really sad. Like Twitter was a great clearinghouse, and it put you in touch with like-minded people, and it was a great way of keeping in up to date with like breaking news and stuff like that. So yeah, so Reddit, I mean, like I said, it's more just mindless scrolling than anything else.
Well, a number of times, Stan, I've thought about a bird emergency subreddit, and I just reckon that would just get lost there. But what do you think? I mean, you've been part of the bird emergency community for for what seems like ages now. I was thinking of either a Facebook group or a subreddit, but I've gone right off the idea of a subreddit because let's be honest, Reddit's full of bloody dickhead trolls as well. So,
it can be. I mean, it's a lot of
yeah.
anonymous people on there. I mean, Facebook is good for the older generation, and I mean that's kind of what everyone looks at on, say, in the Kangaroo Island community. Facebook's the most popular one, but in terms of traction, you're probably better off going with Facebook rather than
well,
Reddit.
Trying to always find new people is what I'm looking for, and like Martin was mentioning before, it's not so much to build. I'd love it if when I went on Twitch that there were 200 people watching and getting engaged and whatnot, but that's not going to happen in this kind of thing because let's be frank, the people who are interested in conservation and birding and whatnot, most of them are working in some kind of science area or lecturing, or if they're in conservation people, they're out there doing conservation volunteer stuff or growing their own plants or something. So this kind of time, they're not really available, but in social media, they can catch up with us. TikTok seems really good for getting new people, so I'm going to put a lot of effort into that. But are you doing Instagram and Threads and finding that getting traction?
Yes, I do both. I've been on Instagram a long time, so I have regular people that follow me there. Threads is a weird one because like it seemed to get a lot of traction right at it was more in the beginning, but and not having the hashtags and the way of tracking things, I guess, is a blessing because it stops trolls and you're only really interacting with people that you follow. But I'm hoping that Threads will get better, and it wants to be Twitter, but it just needs to have a few improvements.
I think it works well if you are engaged in Facebook and you're engaged in Instagram. Threads seem to reward you if you are cultivating an audience on both of those or either of those platforms as well. But I think if you've moved over from Twitter to Threads and you're not trying to do Instagram or Facebook at the same time, Threads won't work. But if you are getting new followers on Instagram, they're instantly a follower on Threads. So it works nicely like that. But are you? I mean, I haven't noticed you on Instagram. Are you doing Instagram?
Yeah, I do like maybe 2 or 3 posts a week.
I must not be following you on
I think
Insta.
I'm Kangaroo Island Stan on Instagram.
Okay, I may not have found you again. I haven't in the last couple of months. Well, look, to be honest, I mean, when did I go off with Millie? That was in May, I think, early May. So I just haven't been active on my regular socials in the way that I had been prior to that. I only really had time to do the first seen and heards, and often I didn't have time when I was away with Millie. It just didn't work out the way either I'd be driving or we'd be out of range or we'd be preparing for Millie to fly or something at the time I would normally do it. So that habit got pretty much broken. And it takes time to find and follow people and to get to know what they're doing. So I've got to really recommit to that personally. So I'll try and find you and check out what's going on Instagram. I tell you what I miss about Twitter that I haven't been finding on the other platforms, and I've almost given Mastodon away, and the only reason that has happened is I haven't been able to, when I've been out and I record something and I want to upload it to Mastodon, it just won't take the videos, even if they're only 30 seconds. They're just not uploading. And without the videos, for for First Seen and Heard or whatever, it just dies, right?
Have you tried? Have you tried switching servers? Because the way that Mastodon works is they're all hosted by different servers. So some of the servers have more capabilities in terms of videos and things like that. But I'm not sure whether
I'm on the main Mastodon server. I didn't go for one of the far out ones. There was something on the Australian one that I applied or something, and that after 5 or 6 or 7 days, no, I hadn't been approved, and I just thought, well, that kind of tells you how often they're looking at how their server's running. So I was on Mastodon.social, but I think once, when everyone moved over and all of a sudden hundreds of thousands of people jumped into Mastodon that hadn't been there before, I think they tightened down on the length of the videos or something, and it just made it. I just don't think they saw themselves as being that kind of platform. And if I was only doing 30-second to a minute uploads, but I would spend 20, 30 minutes trying to get something to upload, I don't have that extra time. I would rather spend that 20 or 30 minutes doing something else that people are actually going to see. Naomi is now following you on Twitter.
not me.
Yes. Oh, sorry, on Insta.
On Insta,
Naomi,
cool, yeah.
Naomi has just put you now following you on Insta, and
thanks, Naomi.
And there we are, nice doggy. Obviously, you've got your dog on Insta, so we'll just work that out. And here, Martin's just trying to work out Facebook and YouTube. Okay, I'll give you my thoughts on both of those, Martin. Facebook, I'll tell you how I do Facebook. I don't do Facebook as a personal kind of thing where I think I follow some people, and I did when really early on. I was a really early adopter with Facebook for personal things and all that, but I just got sick of. I'm not interested in bloody someone I kind of know with their kids' third grade graduation photos or all that. Not interested. Sorry. And unless I'm coming around to your place for a barbecue on the weekend, or I've invited you round for dinner, I'm not interested in your kids' third grade school play or whatever. So I just don't do that stuff. But I do the Bird Emergency podcast page, and I like doing that. And that's a good forum for interacting. I get some really interesting feedback and messages actually on Facebook, so I do like that. But I think there are some issues with Facebook. You need to get your privacy, go in and spend the time working out your privacy settings, about what people can see when they check up on you. Because when people follow me and whatnot, I do go and have a look. And I'll talk about that a bit more, Stan, if you want, if you don't have to rush away, with TikTok, because following people back on TikTok can be very fraught. So I'm having some screening who you actually follow on TikTok can be a bit of a challenge. Facebook's a little bit the same.
So with Facebook, the important thing to remember is there's personal page or personal profile. Yeah. And there's an actual page.
That's right.
So if you're a business or an organization, you'd have a page, and that's monitored differently, where you have administrators, and you can have multiple administrators, and the way of interacting with people is slightly different. And then and then the other side of it is you have a personal page or a profile, and that's where you put your own photos, and that's who you that's how you interact even on a page with your profile. So it is complicated. It's not necessarily just simple.
But definitely you can, if you don't want to set up a page like for the Martin Ross page, apart from your personal profile, Martin. If you get in and just limit who can see what of your information, will make your Facebook journey or your Facebook experience a lot better, because you can get hit with a whole heap of spam and crap and recommended a whole heap of rubbish on Facebook too. But that's the same as every social platform, I guess. Just say Naomi's great for groups. Yes, I got. I'm not really interacting with many groups, but I would like to interact more. I do like seeing what people are putting in the Bird ID groups. Yeah. Naomi say yes, you can totally close your page except for friends. I like being able for people to find my page, but not to really check out any of the information that might allow you to have your identity stolen, which is what we all need to be worried about. And good, Martin's got his privacy settings worked out, so that's good. Stan, are you doing TikTok for Kangaroo Island TV?
No, I've never really done TikTok. I don't know why. I mean, I like YouTube Shorts a lot. I've been doing more and more of those, which is kind of like YouTube's answer to TikTok or whatever. They're trying to capitalize on that. So, I have not done TikTok.
Have you delved into? I haven't had time yet, but I've got to go back. You can go back into all your shorts, and you can now repurpose the way links are done on YouTube, so that you can actually go into your shorts and link to a particular long form video if you've got it on YouTube. So I'm going to try that out soon. Yeah, it's pretty new. It's only in the last 3 or 4 weeks that's come out. But yeah, it takes a lot of time to stay on top of all the changes too. I just noticed someone who is like my go-to YouTube sort of guru just posted something yesterday about YouTube changing their rules and their functionality again, which I haven't noticed the way I use it yet, but it may become more user friendly. Anyway, Sam, I can see that you are getting into work mode. I'd just like to say, go the Pies. Go the Pies. What a magnificent weekend in football. Are you? You're a Crows. You're a Crows supporter, aren't you?
Port Adelaide.
Oh, okay. Well, Port Adelaide are kind of Magpies, so that's okay. They're kind of the Magpies.
Pee-wees.
Well, South Australian flag has the piping crow shrike on it, doesn't it? So
not a magpie.
No, the piping crow shrike, which, depending on which bird you want to call it, you can call it a currawong or you can call it a magpie, because I don't think it's been really well defined. But Port Adelaide are the Magpies, really. So well done, Magpies. Who won the Sandful Premiership this year, Stan?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't know.
I don't know.
Kangaroo Island has a connection to South Adelaide, the South Adelaide Panthers, but I don't think that they won it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think. There's Glenelg, Redlegs, and Sturt. I don't know. I don't know. I don't actually.
No, the Redlegs are Norwood, aren't they?
Norwood, that's it. Yes.
Sturt's the two Blues.
Right.
Woodville, West Torrens, they're the Eagles, aren't they? West Adelaide are they're the Essendon Jumper, but I think they call themselves the Bloods or something, don't they? I don't know.
The Bloods, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I lived in Port Lincoln for 6 years, and I've lived on Kangaroo Island for 6 years. and I've been to Adelaide about half a dozen times in that
Well,
12 years.
there you go. That's probably one more time than anyone needs to in a lifetime. So,
I like Adelaide actually.
oh, so do I. I actually
was
love
impressed
Adelaide.
with it.
It's a lot. It's a while since I've been there and stayed overnight. But I loved that pie cart at what is it, Victoria Square. There used to be a pie cart there that I really liked going to, and it was a couple of really chill places to hang out, and you could go to Trims and buy really cool paisley shirts. That was what I remembered most about Adelaide. Oh, and going and getting completely pasted at the Austral Hotel. So back when I used to drink. So yeah. Well, folks, I'm gonna drop out with Stan in a minute, and then I'm going to I might save up my revelation for the next one, because I think we've talked a lot, and thanks, Stan, for getting me less grumpy about things. That was good, because I was very grumpy today when I oh, well, actually, Stan, I might drop you out of the stream now, but and you can get back to your work. You can listen to what I was talking about with my neighbour. And
all right, I'll keep listening. You won't have to listen to my typing.
Yeah, well, you're very productive, multitasking. So thanks for jumping
I
in.
have to be
like,
paper. The paper has to come out.
That's right. It waits for no man. So deadline. Where's your hat with press in it? The press tag, Jimmy, like Jimmy Olsen. Well, that was his name, wasn't it? Is that his name?
My dad
Superman?
always says that to me. Yeah, I know. I think it was earlier than that. My dad always says that to me. He goes, "Where's your hat with press in it?"
Yeah. Well,
He always says
there you go. I might be nearly as old as your dad, Stan. So, so there we go. I remember watching Superman at 5:00 in the afternoon, the black and white Superman, and I'm sure it was Jimmy Olsen was his name, the Cub reporter and photographer, and he had press in his hat. So there we go. All right, mate. Good to catch up. We'll let's talk gardening more on a Saturday morning sometime. I'll send you out an invite, and you can tell me when you want to do that. Maybe I'll get you on with Costa if I can do it. That would be cool.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, mate. See ya.
See everybody.
Bye. All right. Now, so Stan's gone. I will. He can take himself out. I don't know what is going on with my desktop is playing up a little bit, so I'm disconcerted because I can't see me the way I normally see me. There we are. Stan is gone. There we are. No, Stan's gone, but let's just say yes. It's always nice to talk to people and meet the gang in the stream. So thanks for popping in, Stan. So I was talking with a neighbour who I just met this morning, who lives across the park. Now, he volunteers to work with the Salvation Army, feeding the less fortunate in the western suburbs here of Melbourne, and doing other sort of community service tasks for them. But he works in IT and in cyber security for his day job, and his grandparents migrated to Australia as refugees from Vietnam. So he is now, let's say his parents were born here, he was born here, and he lives just across the park from my front door. And he was walking around when I was looking at the wattlebirds this morning, feeding the fledgling. And we got into a discussion about conservation, and you know, maybe he's watching or listening at the moment because he was interested in what we do with the show. But he asked me the question about what can we do, and it's really bugging me because I talked about, he raised this sort of issues about can we make a difference and what can make a difference? And if you're a regular viewer or listener, you know I often say there's a handful of people in the boardrooms of the country who could make a difference. Plastic pollution is one of these really obvious things where our consumer behaviour could be significantly altered just by what is offered for sale in supermarkets and stores. It would be quite easy to reduce the amount of plastic that we have the option to purchase. There's something is really weird going on with my. Here we go. I'm going to do that now. That's better. Oh, sorry. Now I've got my I've got everything back and I can see everything now and I can see the comments. Sorry, I couldn't see where the comments were. So I'm wondering whether, like, I've spent a lot of energy, personal energy, over time worrying about what, separating things for recycling and whatnot. But then learning that most of the paper and cardboard that we put out for recycling is either stored and never recycled and then catches fire in these warehouse fires or goes to landfill. 10% of plastics that we thought we were recycling end up getting recycled. I'm not sure of the figure with glass and with cans. I'm just not sure. I'm wondering whether that energy that I've always expended in trying to be a good consumer would actually be better spent being a bit more radical and doing direct action and actually supporting the groups that are doing conservation messaging. What do you guys think? Would it would 10 hours a month be better spent going into volunteer with the Wilderness Society or Friends of the Earth or I don't know. I mean, there's any number of groups or the community nursery. Your local Indigenous nursery. I don't know what are your thoughts about that? Is where is the best bang for the buck, or am I better to fire up this microphone more often in different time slots and just go off more often? I can tell you I get much more interaction when Ranty Granty turns up than when he doesn't, especially on social media. But does that seeming approval that you get on social media, I'm wondering whether that ever translates into action that other people take, be that planting a tree or and even planting a tree. Is planting a tree the best thing if it's not the best tree to plant in the best place? Is it better to plant a tree than to stop a tree being cut down? And I would say now it's much better to stop a tree being cut down than to be planting a tree. I think if you don't stop a tree from being cut down, you probably need to plant 50 to 100 trees to make up for the one that has been cut down. Thoughts? I'm really wanting to provoke some thought and some discussion, because how many seedlings or cuttings that are maybe 6 months old or a year old going in the ground make up for a 50-year-old casuarina or allocasuarina that may be a black cockatoo feed tree. So if a mature tree that feeds a population of rare birds is gone, does it really matter that you planted a callistemon or I don't know, anything? You plant a nice gum tree on a verge somewhere. I don't know. While and don't misinterpret that I am saying it's not important to plant trees or to do revegetation work. I'm not saying that, but I'm thinking that we now need to think that the value of tree planting work is actually far less in a real conservation sense than the value of stopping destruction. And for a long time, even though I've always been sort of a lefty and a greenie, I sort of equated the two. And I think that for probably 10 years, I've been misguided. I think the really valuable work is stopping destruction rather than being proactive in revegetation or new plantings. What do you think? And have you considered it in that way? Because I think I was just blithely and blindly equating one with the other for a long time. And my interest in revegetation, I think being so keen on it was because of my interest in plants, driven by my interest in horticulture and native and indigenous plants. And I think when you sit down in the cold light of day, and if you are putting, pros and cons on the side of a ledger, I think now I'm firmly that there's just no comparison. Yeah. I think I don't really think thousands of beautiful habitat gardens that people are putting together in the suburbs around Australia can make up for 1 hectare of old growth forest. I just, even one 200-year-old mature tree in the landscape is probably worth maybe the conservation value of more than 1,000 dedicated gardeners trying to make a difference. So Naomi's been tied herself to trees in the past. So I'll read this one out for when people get it on the stream. And hi, there's some new people popping in. So if you're new here, welcome to the Bird Emergency. We're into the 2-hour mark of today's stream, and we're currently talking about the value of preserving habitat, and specifically I'm talking about habitat trees versus creating new habitat or repairing old habitat. So Naomi said she reckons it's a great thing to protect the old growth. I think Naomi thinks I'm dead right, that she's tied herself to trees in the past, and how can the new plants provide the habitat or food that old plants provide? Yeah, and I think that's part of the thing. We get encouraged to think that it's our job to do little things to make a difference, whereas in reality, there's probably 100 people. Maybe I think I pushed it out. I think there's probably 1,000 people in the boardrooms and the political movers and shakers in Australia that could make a massive difference. And I reckon we could probably say there's maybe 100,000 decision makers around the world who could make a massive difference just by taking on board that it's better to preserve something that is functioning and valuable rather than trying to rather than repair something after we've broken it. I'm talking about habitats and ecosystems and viable habitat. And I reckon that's really where we're at. Was probably, there might be far less than 100,000 people around the world, because it's the people sitting in boardrooms and at the heads of government who could really make a massive difference. And really are our interests. And this is where I'm really thinking from a personal point of view is, maybe I should be taking my efforts out to direct campaigns, or and again, I think of where maybe I could be more effective. Maybe I can be more effective by inviting more direct action campaigners onto the show. I don't know. Or maybe I should be trying to reach out and collaborating with people who are more popular and in the mainstream, maybe on the fringe of what we talk about here regularly, and penetrating some of those markets or really communities. Martin, what have you got? I'm a cynic. I think government doesn't have much interest in protecting habitats. The environment come last. Yeah, I certainly agree. But what I do think, Martin, is that governments and businesses respond to pressure. And once the pressure gets big enough that they can't ignore it, and if it's costing them money, and if we really thought, look, if Labor thought they would never ever get a majority again in this country, and that they would always need to deal with the Greens, we'd have a different looking government. I think this government thinks that they can still get a majority and not have to deal with left independents, for want of a better term, or the Greens. Now, I'd like to see that never happens again. But then you have to make sure that the Greens don't turn into a mainstream party. Because the minute that a centre balance of power party turns into a mainstream party, you've then got to find more fringy groups to keep the pressure on. But that's what I'm kind of thinking here, and I think that is the case wherever we look around the world. But I don't know. That's where I'm kind of placed. Who else is in the crew? Here we go. I'm glad you brought up private conservation groups such as AWC, Australian Wildlife Conservancy, and others that buy land are big contributors. I agree, Martin. I think the AWC and Tasmanian Land Council and so many others, and any of the people who are putting covenants on their own land, certainly really, really important. But here's the problem, Martin. Why are we relying on other groups to purchase land and protect it when so much of the land that needs to be protected is already government owned, or the government can stop the destruction or degradation of it simply by policing better land use conditions? So I don't disagree with you, but I think we need to push that thought a little bit wider, because while AWC and so many other groups are buying small portions of really critical habitat, I contend that the government, if you have a government, and every state government has a minister for environment or conservation, isn't it incumbent on them to do that conservation work? And perhaps the AWC then could spend the money on maintenance into the future and training conservationists, put the money into people. The government could put the money into the purchasing of the land and the assets. Because if you buy the land, it's then got to be maintained, and you have to have vehicles, and you have to have staff, and you have to have insurance and all that. So, I'm certainly not. Don't ever think that I'm not in awe of the amazing fundraising, and then organising and on the ground work that all these groups do. But I don't think they should be finding the funds to protect critical habitat when you have a government with a minister for the environment / conservation. That's where the money should be being found. And let's not fool ourselves. if you've got governments who can find millions, hundreds of millions of dollars promoting or building stadiums for sporting events, surely that money can be found to preserve our natural heritage. How many other countries in the world have got plains wanderers or swift parrots or dunarts or antechinus or quolls or eremophilas? Nowhere. So, yeah. Oh, I haven't even got to that story that I saw on Twitter about companies and groups using countries' forests that haven't been developed as their offsets. It's just like, here, please don't develop. Please don't lift your own standard of living. Here's but a trinket for us to offset our terrible husbandry of our own countries. I don't know. Don't know. I won't even go there. That's without going through that article and whatnot. It's too much. Yeah. Okay, Naomi. What did Naomi say? Apparently, the Liberal Abbott government gave some money toward buying land for conservation. The problem is the funding has now been taken away, and these tracts of land are either being maintained by volunteers or going to weed. That's really my point, allied to my point, Naomi, and why, as someone who has been involved in growing plants for revegetation and doing the weekends on tree planting and being involved in land care, a lot of projects have funding to be established, but then there's no funding for maintenance, and then weed control becomes a problem. Or in shelter belts and whatnot, where maybe acacias, wattlers have been planted because they're quick growing, but they get over mature really quickly and they senesce, they die back. And then if there isn't other tree cover to replace them, if there's no succession planting to actually then take on the canopy, well, it goes to weeds too. And all that effort is then wasted. Or it becomes a fire hazard and then it gets cleared because it's a fire hazard. Then you need to maintain things if they're not part of a self-sustaining system. So, but that's never talked about because that's not the good news story. The good news story is a government has purchased some land or whatever. That was part of the issue with Saving Our Species, which was the New South Wales government program that I thought was really a leader. But then the New South Wales government, and it was a Liberal government at the time, bought some pastoral leases to create 2 new national parks. But at the same time, they took away a great slab of the funding earmarked, into the next series of budgets for Saving Our Species to fund that purchase. And they talked about the ongoing need for maintenance. So a really targeted, highly effective program loses some money to go into some other purchase, which can be waved around as what a great job we've done. I really think we're not analysing these things well enough, and we're certainly letting PR from all governments and on all sides, all stripes, all colours, to duck shove their responsibility for preservation, and which makes it hard for people to apply pressure because they're being hoodwinked into the great strides that we're making, especially when so many people the kind of action that people did for the Franklin and the would now, if you were taking that kind of action to protect things in forests I'm not sure about South Australia, certainly Victoria, New South Wales, and Tasmania, you're more likely to end up in prison for doing that kind of action. It's not just being fined and being hauled before a magistrate. Depending on how the ministers treat those areas and whether they gazette them or notify them as particular types of places, it can be very dangerous to be involved in direct action now. I think we're just getting away from it. Naomi, good point. If there isn't the forethought to maintain the land, well, it's not just the forethought, it's actually committing the funds for longer than a 3-year budget cycle. You need these funds need to be almost in perpetuity. And yeah, it is greenwashing. It's a little bit different to greenwashing. It's part of this endless push for everything to be PR and to make everyone feel good about doing something rather than doing something that it works and lasts. Yeah. See, here's the problem though, isn't it, Naomi? Why should 20 or 30 people have to be prepared to go to jail to do something that our ministers are actually charged with doing? What we should do is we should pass a bill through Parliament that makes a Minister for the Environment personally liable for not protecting the things that they are supposed to protect. So if the swift parrot goes extinct, let's make every Minister for the Environment in the states where it occurs and federal and the territory, if it's in the ACT as well, let's make them all serve a mandatory 1-month jail term for every species that goes extinct, and we make it retroactive from today. From today, every extinction, let's have a 1-month period of imprisonment for the ministers for the environment or conservation for every species that goes extinct for the next 50 years. I mean, if that was the law, some things would change. But as it is, you need to put your own personal liberty at risk to stop logging in old growth and significant regrowth. Let's say significant regrowth is habitat too. I just think we're losing sight of. Well, no, I don't think we're losing sight. I don't think anyone involved in this discussion. I don't think Naomi, Martin, Stan, any of you involved today is not on top of the discussion. But I don't think. Well, I can certainly tell you. I can tell you that my neighbour today. We were talking about the podcast, and he looked up and whatnot, and he looked on Twitter. And I mentioned that I'd gone to Bali to interview the people who run the foundation trying to save the Bali starling. And he said, "Oh, Bali starling." And he had a look at my icon on Twitter, which is the Bali starling and the little white bird that if you follow me on Twitter, you will have seen. And he looked it up and Bali starling. What? Less than 50? And I said, yeah, in the wild. That's right. That's how few of them are left. Now, there's more of them in captivity breeding up and being released into the wild. And they're still having to be released onto an island sanctuary off the coast of Bali. But that's how perilous it is. But let's not fool ourselves. The swift parrot is in that situation. The population is larger, but because it's such a specialised feeder and breeder, the impacts of 100 hectares of clearing can be catastrophic. And it's not a bird that has a insurance population in the aviculture collections of the world, like the golden-shouldered parrot or the hooded parrot. And this person I was speaking to is aware, is smart, but totally unaware of how bad things are here. When I mentioned to him that we could lose koalas from the wild in most of Australia within 50 years, he said, yeah, rubbish. And I said, well, they used to be super common 100 years ago in Queensland, and now they're a novelty in Queensland. New South Wales. In Victoria, they're really common in French Island, Phillip Island, but I think they're translocated populations anyway. So I'm not sure how many people are seeing koalas in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, in the leafy green, where they used to be quite commonly seen when I was a kid. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I'm guessing they're not very I'm not really sure that they are what you would call common now in Melbourne. Naomi's comment on Facebook, I'm disgusted that it's so. I think Naomi agrees there should be some personal liability on the politicians. Perhaps they stop building, thinking of the back pocket if a loss of liberty were a threat to them. Yeah, look, I know I'm overblowing it and being, deliberately blustery. And Naomi likes the idea. Martin's got a comment about the yellow chat probably going extinct from Port Curtis. So that's in the Gladstone region. Numbers now plummeted, not looking good. Used to be a part of the eastern distribution. Yeah. I mean, there's countless examples of this, and one of the reasons why I don't think we should be relying on places like AWC to buy the land, I'd like to see money being put into biologists and ecologists being able to do the surveys to actually track how some of these populations of yellow chat and countless other birds that are not being monitored, so people don't notice the decline because they're not being methodically counted, systematically reviewed year after year, or whichever time period, maybe 5 yearly or 10 yearly, but we don't have that hard data. So anyway, I don't want to get more depressed about it and more grumpy about it, but I really am struggling with the idea of what will be more effective. And Martin, you make a good point. Rising tides, bushfire, all of these kind of things are becoming massively problematic. You've got to remember, and you look at specialised birds like seabirds, we're overfishing, and as other countries where seabirds are breeding or roosting, as they develop, their suitable habitat is reducing. So it's not just a problem that we think of in our local, you put our Australian hat on. This is happening on every parcel of land around the world. So, what was it, 2014, when I coined the bird emergency because I thought it was emergency then. It's a bloody catastrophe now. Naomi. Okay, Naomi's made a comment about now they've changed the zoning on French Island. It's ridiculous. People now put up residential buildings in medium density. Well, we need to. This is an adjunct conversation. I saw it in somewhere. People were saying we shouldn't have. Oh, it was Port Stephens, isn't it? They don't want offshore wind turbines off the coast of Port Stephens. In the same breath, someone said, "Oh, it's really important for us to do renewable energy, but not here." We have that argument here in Melbourne all the time about medium density housing. Well, if we want to stop the suburban sprawl, we have to have medium density housing. People have to accept that if someone wants to redevelop the house next door, maybe it will have 3 stories. We just have to accept that. Otherwise, we have to accept that more farmland or woodland or forested areas on the fringes of cities and towns are turned into housing. We can't say. See, French Island's a really interesting thing, Naomi, because I think all those koalas are introduced. And having grown up down there and being familiar with French Island very, very much, but being someone who grew up on the Mornington Peninsula, I think the rules should be in place for all of the Mornington Peninsula, the fringes of Western Port, Phillip Island, French Island. All of this habitat is really, really important. So I don't think you can tell people on French Island that they don't have the same opportunity to subdivide their blocks as people living in other areas of their shire. I want to be a bastard about it. None of you can, unless you are doing the kind of. You shouldn't be able to take new habitat. I've got nothing against someone who's got a house in French Island turning it into a 3-story townhouse, provided the services are there to support it. The same way that I would say you should have that right in Tooradin or in Hastings. I want more people living where they've already buggered up the land, not more people going to escape somewhere to go into somewhere that hasn't already been buggered up or is slightly less buggered up. If you understand that that train of thought. Well, I haven't followed the French Island one so much, but yeah, I do agree that they shouldn't be doing new land clearing in any of those places unless the land is already cleared. Because we have already cleared land, and if we need new development, we can do it on land that is already cleared. That's my thought. I'll follow up on French Island, Naomi, because the last time I looked was at French Island was really about the work that they were doing in eradication of cats. Now, what's Stan got? Stan's comment. Seeing humanity increasingly ignore reality of how crowded and degraded the planet is becoming. So anything that raises awareness and important. More infill and high rise instead of sprawl. Yeah, that's really the point I'm making, Stan. And what Naomi said, yeah, I agree. People staying in locations that are stuffed and have limited habitat. See, here's the point about power. And I was talking to my neighbour about this. At the moment, people who can't buy houses because they can't afford them, first home buyers, they're always a catchy group for the news, and so they always do stories on them. But those people are still not the critical voting bloc. At the moment, the critical voting bloc are people who already own houses. It's the 40-year-olds, the 50-year-olds, the 60-year-olds, the 70-year-olds, and the people are going to inherit the houses of the 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds who are already ensconced in suburbs like mine. So the minute the thought of someone putting up, I'm looking out the window now at a single story, I think that's a 4-bedroom house. And I'm sure people would object around here if that was sold and was redeveloped into 3-story or even 2-story multi-dwelling unit. Now, I might be upset about it in one way, but there's no significant vegetation on that block. So for that to happen, it's no net loss. I'm more upset by the house down the road that got sold and the mature Grevillea robustas that were significant feed trees and shade and shelter trees are now gone. That's a significant impact from my point of view in this area. But I've got no problem with turning a 3-bedroom house into a dwelling for 4 families. I don't have a problem with that. We need it. I would far rather they did that than create a new suburb on the further out on the outskirts of Melbourne. I'd much rather more people live here. And then we can have all the conversations about public transport and overcrowding and all that. But yeah, we can fix those problems. We've already got roads. We've already got a train line. We've already got buses. We've already got sewerage and water and all that. We need to better utilise what we've got. That's my point about this discussion. But we need to get away from this not in my backyard. I don't want someone developing in my backyard, and I want to preserve my view. No, we don't have those rights anymore. We're too late for those conversations. So that what have you got here, Naomi? I wouldn't object if people develop the old IGA site into a 3-story apartment block. I think it would be an equal eyesore. See, that sounds to me, Naomi, like the IGA. I'm assuming it's a local thing. You had a supermarket, but it's now not trading on that site. Now, I don't know whether you lost your supermarket, but the fact that building, that degradation has already happened. So, yeah, turn it into medium density housing would be my thought, or even high density housing. Would be my thought. Let's support it. Martin, is there a push for more high-rise living down here? The answer is yes, Martin. I mean, Melbourne City is filled with high-rises, but most of them have been developed into high-budget penthouses. You know, like they're not aimed at people who are just the average Joe or Josephine. The state government has released a plan to redevelop all of the existing high-rise public housing stock and to make it slightly less density but better quality housing, and with all that sustainability in mind and whatnot. So that will be a plus. I would actually like to see more medium density towers built so that normal people, you know, and by normal people, I mean people who aren't earning $100,000 a year and who don't inherit homes from their parents and who don't have their parents providing their home deposits for them, that they could get into. And then we don't have to cut more stuff down. We don't have to build new infrastructure. We may have to improve the infrastructure that we've already got to support more people. But the argument about whether we're going to have more people or not is one that we've already lost. We're going to have more people. So what we've got to do is make the population that we're going to have, that is going to be larger, more sustainable. So that means changing the way that we do things. I mean, cattle aren't part of the future, you know, other than maybe a house cow. But the idea that we're feeding the world with cattle, red meat, is dumb. The idea that we're feeding the world from the oceans is dumb. I don't think anyone can advance that it's a sustainable way of living. You'll have industry people talk about how it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be, but that's bullshit. Yeah, prove me wrong. Come and tell me how if people are aspiring to eat the way we eat all over the world, and they do, how can that possibly be sustainable for the world? My inbox, livestock and farming people, you can send your demonstrated solutions to me at grant@thebirdemergency.com. I'd be happy to talk about it, happy to have you on the show, happy to have you demonstrate to me how all the countries that aim to be largely middle class in their standard of living can live the way we do, and for it to be sustainable for the world. Naomi, I agree that medium or high density housing would be good on the old IGA site. We had 2 supermarkets, now we just have the one. Yeah, so there we go. Market failure to start with. That's a whole different thought. But from my point of view, if you live in any town, suburb, and there is already cleared land and there is a shortage of available housing stock, it can go on that cleared land, is my thought. And when I say cleared land, for instance, around here, there's plenty of cleared land, but it's significant habitat for little grasses, grassland communities and things like that. I'm not saying that. So again, there needs to be an environmental assessment there, but in so many streets, there are places sitting empty. There are limits on the kind of the density of development that we can have because people want to preserve their beautiful Hawthorne, Glen Iris, Malvern, South Yarra, further out in the eastern suburbs. People want to have that lovely, they don't want to look at their neighbours' windows. They don't want them looking in their backyard. Those days are gone, my friend. Those days are gone. You can't tell me that you care about preserving quolls and dunnarts and numbats, but object to somebody turning a one-story dwelling into a 3-story dwelling in a inner or outer suburb. You're just full of shit, in my view. Absolutely full of shit. Baby boomers' times are over. Yeah, Martin. But let's not fool ourselves. This is a class struggle. I don't want to put my red Communist Party hat on totally, but as the baby boomers die out, they're just replaced by their children, who are the beneficiaries of being baby boomers, and they become baby boomers. All the same arguments will be advanced by people with pools in their backyards and tennis courts in their backyards and lovely views of the Dandenongs or the bay or whatever else suburb, the harbour or wherever else you live. Those same arguments will be in perpetuity. Yes, and Martin, I know you know. I'm just saying, for those who watch the replay or whatever, and hear this later on, I just think land use is one of the key issues that we need to confront, and I think the enemy of sustainable development and really good development is NIMBYism, and I don't think we're anywhere near getting rid of NIMBYism And I used to be someone who was always about NIMBY crap too when I lived in small communities, and I didn't really accept how perilous the situation was for so many of our vegetation communities, our habitats, our flora and fauna, avifauna. Insects. I only a matter of 5 to 10 years ago, I was nowhere near as informed as I am now, and I don't want to address the conversation. I'm going to put your comment up again in a minute, Naomi. I think it's really good. I don't want to be seen to take the argument into, or the discussion, the conversation into being adversarial against farmers, because that's not what it's about. It's like saying, if we can see that an industry has run its course as the world has changed, what we need to is transition out of it rather than hang on to it for dear life. So I don't want farmers to go out of business as a business, because farms are a business. I want them to transition into something which is sustainable, so that 2 and 3 generations down the track, if they still want they want those farms to be succession family businesses that carry on for another 50 to 100 years, you can't be doing cattle. I don't know whether you can be doing sheep. I just don't know. I don't know whether you can be doing wheat. I don't know if our water budget nationally will allow these kind of industries to continue. I don't know if our rainfall patterns will allow these industries to carry on. I don't know if you can legitimately make a decision now to start a vineyard as a hobby, as your second business, funded by your medical practice or your architecture firm in the city, but you want to go and have a winery. I don't know if the water budget equation makes that a responsible choice, a valid choice. I think we need to have these discussions. Naomi, let's have a look at your comment. Naomi grew up on a small beef farm in the 70s and 80s. It was not a great way to provide not a great way to provide food. We're on an incredible fertile soil, but still needed to bring in hay at times. The income for small farms was not great. It's big to massive farms. They make profits, but at what cost? Here's the thing, Naomi. You've got a couple more. I don't mean my comment to be adversarial, but I'm saying there are better ways to produce food, just not red meat. Yeah, look, I totally understand. Look, I think most small farms in Australia, only the families that are part of those farms only survive as an economic unit by having off-farm income. I think that's true. I think that's true. So that means people are either doing part-time work elsewhere, or one half of the family is working in shops or in a hospital or at the local council offices or something like that. That enables people, and basically the farm is just where they live, and they do farming the same way some people sell second-hand goods or make clothes and sell them, or do lawn mowing or whatever. So I think the economics need to be studied, and I think they're deliberately obscured so people can't that we can't have those discussions. And Martin, you're spot on. I think most farmers are selling out to big business. Yeah. What a lot of people don't tell you now is that a lot of farms are still being managed by the people who live on the farm, and it may have been their family farm in the past. But yes, it's been sold off to someone like Janet Holmes à Court or some other big farming venture. Some of these international companies that are also meat processors, so they operate meat works and they operate export firms and they operate meat packing plants. So I think if you dig a little bit deeper, the industry is not as we thought it is, or promoted it, that it is promoted to be in the lovely feel-good advertising that we see, particularly in livestock. Livestock is where it is insidious. What's Naomi said? I love it when a comment starts off with "You're right." Yeah, I like that. Most of the small to medium farm owners I know have other jobs to put food on the table. That's right. And most small farms are not generally reliant on just farm income. And Naomi, you made the point too about hay and whatnot. A lot of people who would identify themselves as either dairy farmers or graziers, often a major part of their income is cutting hay, selling hay and silage and maybe some form of cropping. So the economics in farming is becoming, it's probably always been the case, but I don't think it was cool for people to say, oh yeah, I do cropping, or, oh, you're a farmer, what do you do? I grow hay. You know, I don't think that gets the girls at ringers on a Saturday night if you're a 20-year-old fella driving up in your Hilux to yeah. Anyway, I'm getting to my days in Gippsland, but that's I'll actually dig into it. I'll get some of the ABARE reports and have a look at it, and maybe try and interview some people involved in agriculture, and maybe I'll get Martin Ty back on talking about degrowth, and we might kick around some of these things, because they're certainly not being talked about in any of the mainstream media or normal, even not mainstream media, but sort of lefty media. I just don't think anyone wants to have these discussions, because they sort of fly in the face of how we see ourselves as a country. Yeah, I think we like to see ourselves as this country of wide open spaces and being good stewards of the land and all that kind of stuff. But any of the stats about, I don't think any of the stats can demonstrate that we're good stewards of the land. Yeah. What have you got here, Naomi? Even less of a pulling job is I grow lawn. Well, I got to tell you, I'd be far more interested in a woman who told me that she grew lawn than if she told me that she was producing beef. Yeah, hay is big business. We export it. Absolutely, Martin. Hay is massive business. And not only do we export it, but so many, and as Naomi alluded to before, so many livestock producers in Australia cannot survive without bringing in hay from places like East Gippsland and other parts where they grow, they might get 4 cuts of hay a year. And then that goes out to all the rangelands in Australia. And yeah. And look, if we're importing it from overseas, that means there are farms overseas who are not getting hay and not getting, so they're not feeding their livestock. So they have to find some other way to do it. And what else have you got here, Martin? Even when there's a shortage for Australian farmers in drought. Yeah, well, we're always going to have, parts of Australia are always going to be in drought. It's just the way it is. It's a big continent. And this idea of having a water deficit is just going to become more critical. And as our winds change and probably become frequently stronger, then we'll have the soil erosion problem. And maybe if we get the flooding happening in the scales that we've been seeing in the last sort of 10 years, maybe we'll go back to having salinity as being a major problem. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember when nearly all of we always had discussions about salinity and its impact on agriculture in Australia. We haven't solved any of the problems, really. Anyway, it's all doom and gloom today. I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I had a great weekend with Collingwood winning the premiership. Found some really cool books. Now, okay, let's move into the future. Looking ahead to last year, I did a stream where we talked about some of the great Christmas gifts. I want you to recommend to me submit or submission, either one, at thebirdemergency.com. Tell me good books or other gifts that you have seen or anything that you think might make a good gift for a bird nerd or a conscientious nature lover as we come into Christmas time. We need a big long lead up so that we have people have enough time to become aware of the products and then to procure them. So think about that when you're out in the shops or in the bookshops or perusing catalogues or anything like that. Excuse me. So we've got to think ahead for Christmas. Also, I put the habitat gardening hat on a bit. I want to have a way to not only take live questions, but if you think about questions or you want recommendations or something like that for in the gardening area, particularly habitat gardening, again, email me or find me on socials, any of the socials, and put a question or a comment or something if there's something you want me to talk about. Do that. I really want to build up that gardening question situation or segment in as a large part of that show, and it will be the show will be regularly 9:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning. The idea being that you can catch it, check it out live, and then head off to your local nursery or go and do some gardening or go and get involved in something over that weekend and put into practice some of the things we talk about. So yeah, I will be far more talking horticulture as well as birds and nature in that in that show. I also have a separate YouTube channel that will be aimed at that, but I will be also streaming it to the Bird Emergency channel. So what I would like to do is, if you're really interested in the gardening stuff, to over time migrate you to there, and maybe for a year I'll stream it on both YouTube channels, but then eventually move it over to just the Habitat Gardening with Grant channel. I'll start promoting that as of this week. Naomi's just had a happy thing in her garden. Large-billed scrub wren and Lewin's honeyeater just used the bird bath, so that's very, very, very good. Happy to hear that. Okay, Naomi, I'm going to star that one as well, but I will ask if there's books. Where are we? Sorry, great book, An Immense World by Ed Yong. If you've got the details, like the publication details and all that, of these books, so that I can try and find them in the library or go and look at them at my local bookstore, please send me the details. Naomi, you could message me on Facebook or you could email me. Either way, quite happy for either way you want to do that. And I'll try and chase them down and actually give them a fair treatment when we talk about them. So yeah, I'm currently really enjoying two books that I got out from the library that I'm considering purchasing. The first one is Kate Hurd and Jayla Ivankovic Waters native, and it's called the tagline Art and Design with Australian Plants. So I'm really enjoying that. It's very brief, but it's mirrors what I have always thought with my design. And the other thing I'm loving at the moment, I knew it was out for a long time, but I hadn't got my hands on it, is Eucalypts, a Celebration by John Wrigley and Murray Fagg. And John Wrigley and Murray Fagg wrote my favourite native plant garden book, Cultivation of Australian Native Plants, which I think is in its eighth edition or something now. It's a fantastic book. And if you have never bought a gardening book about native plants, that is what I would recommend. But you'll get all that kind of information when we do Habitat Gardening. And the next Habitat Gardening will be, or the first inaugural one, will be 9:30 on Saturday morning, this Saturday coming, on the Bird Emergency YouTube channel. Also on the Facebook, I'll be streaming it to the Twitch as well and everything. But I'll also start developing those that program and that segment onto the Habitat Gardening with Grant. And I've got to rejig the website so that we do all of that. But yeah, we'll get on to that. Martin's got some good news. What have we got? Good news: the Indian miner on Canberra, positive outcomes from the group trapping them on the ABC. Martin, can you private me a link for that? I would love to. I hadn't seen that come past my feed, but yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about that next Monday. I don't know who's joining us next Monday, and I'm hoping that there'll actually be Photography Friday coming back. Not sure if it'll be this Friday, probably the following Friday. There's a couple of people that emails are going out today, and we'll see how we how soon that gets up. So yeah, and again, also to bring you in on what's happening, Tour Guide Thursday, a bunch of emails went out over the weekend for people to talk to me about nature tourism, specifically bird tourism. So yeah, I don't know how frequently that will pop up, but it will be popping up. And Naomi says that Naomi won't be here for gardening show on Saturday, but that's okay. And look, the other thing too. Tell me. I want your thoughts on this. What I am considering doing is just rebroadcasting, because I can easily do that. All of the shows I've done with Ricky, a selection of the shows with Holly and some of the other shows, and just so that people around the world and around Australia at different times, and doing them, rebroadcasting them at odd times, so people can actually find the shows. So they'll just be put out there as replay, and then during the show, I'll be encouraging people to I'll do this sort of more often now, that people can always comment and contribute. If they're not live, grant at thebirdemergency.com, or for any of the submissions, submit at thebirdemergency.com, or submission at thebirdemergency.com, or private message me on any of the socials. And the best way to find all the socials is to go to thebirdemergency.com/live, and all the links are there for the various different platforms. And I want to take on board suggestions, comments, suggestions for guests, news clippings. We were talking before with Stan. I used to get so much of the things I wanted to talk about from Twitter, but now they're often invisible. So I'm not seeing a lot of the small projects and the small, a lot of those ecologists and conservationists that I used to see all the time are less visible in my Twitter. So please, if you have suggestions for things you think I should cover or should be aware of, please let me know, because it's harder to find them now than it has been in the last few years, which makes it harder for me to find guests too, by the way. So and that's one of the reasons why there hasn't been so much on the standard format of the Bird Emergency, because it's, I think I mentioned it before, so many people over the pandemic were behind on their field work, and then so they've been out doing the field work, and then, of course, they've got to write it up and submit their thesis or meet project deadlines that had been suspended while we had the pandemic lockdowns and things. So a lot of people have just been super busy, and I totally understand that. But hopefully their calendars will open up a bit more, and we can get more people talking to me, because it really I was away for the best part of 3 months, so I couldn't book anyone. And then sort of momentum is a big thing in these. Naomi, I just see that you are going to Patchywalla. Does that mean you're going out with Simon Starr? And going on a tour in Patchywalla? Tell me, is that are you going out with Simon Starr, or is it the Mallee tours? What is it? Love the Mallee? Is that the one? Which one are you going on? Because they both got great reviews. I'd love to know. And actually, I have reached out. I must follow up. They were too busy. Okay, Love the Mallee. That the one? Love the Mallee. They're actually the most recent people that I invited, and they were too busy. But I'll keep reaching out and see if we can get there. Oh my God, we've ticked over three hours. That includes the 5 to 10 minutes where I wasn't talking. Gee, we've really gone. No wonder I'm getting dry in the mouth and a little bit hoarse. Let me say hello to, hello Facebook. Hi Twitch, it's nice when someone's on Twitch. Say hello. Love to know where you are listening or watching from. Are you playing games at the same time, since you're a Twitch nerd? Let me know. And, of course, the usual YouTubers. Naomi, they will be really fantastic. I've spoken to many, many people who have been on that tour, and everyone says how well they know their patch. And I think a large part of the tour is actually on their property, so they know. I know it like they know it like the back of their hands. And because of that, they know what's around all the time. It's great. It's great to see, and I really love that they've turned their holding into something that works for conservation, raises awareness, and at the same time they're protecting it. So, which is one of the reasons that I really want to, really want to talk to them about their business. Anyway, we'll just say I think the hardest portion or the hardest sector to cover in the show is that tour sector, because my show just isn't big enough for people to look at it and go, oh yeah, that'd be really worth going on this show. But but anyway, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Oh, the other thing I would like your thoughts on. Do you think do you, in the podcast feed, the audio podcast, I'm not talking about YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and whatnot, are you lot in the right squad today subscribe to the podcast feed, and do you think that a show like this should go into the podcast feed? Because I'm torn on it. I'm split on it. So I'd be interested in your thoughts if you are podcast listeners rather than sort of interacting all the time and consuming on the various socials like Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and even Twitter, because we are streaming to Twitter as well, but I've got no idea. I can't tell whether people are watching or listening on Twitter. I'll just have a look. Yeah, I can't see. We are still going live. I'm not actually looking, so I can't tell whether any. Actually, maybe I'll have a look now, see if anyone's watching on Twitter. Means I need to go to the home. Where are we? Maybe I need to go to my profile page. I probably do. Profile. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. My pinned post. No, according to this, currently nobody watching on Twitter. So I might just start. I only put it there for in the hope that somebody sees it. And I got a notification though. What do I get a notification for? Someone's talking about photographing the moon, and I'm tagged into that discussion. I don't know how. So now we're talking about Love the Mallee. They have 150 or more hectares. Yep. Stan. Stan says he started listening to podcasts in my headphones on my daily walk and mainly listen to the YouTube podcasts. I cancelled Spotify because of Joe Rogan. Now, there's a couple of good things. Yeah, I'm walking around with my headphones on all the time when I'm out, and I'm always listening to something. I also consume a lot of my podcasts on YouTube. I dipped into Joe Rogan for about 3 months, and then I realised what the dude was all about, and this is years ago, so I stopped listening. But can't beat YouTube music, and you know that I'm a J-pop tragic, so I do love my J-pop on the headphones while I'm out and about, and also a lot of politics. YouTube is where while I'm out doing things, I keep abreast and of what's going on. So. Yeah, so Stan, I guess you're telling me that you're not listening to the podcast feed, and so because you're not listening to the podcast feed, you're just getting my stuff, my stuff in YouTube, which I'm totally cool with. I can tell you if the YouTube numbers really start arcing up, which I would love. So if you're not subscribe to the YouTube, please do. I will do more on YouTube. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be led a bit by where the numbers are and where people are interacting, because interactivity is a big part of what I want to do, and that's where I'll lean towards the content. And obviously we're not cracking massive numbers with the live stream, but if you know people who love live streams or doing live stuff, please encourage them to be involved, and hopefully we'll have more friends in the Riot Squad as we go along. I think. Will you have any objections if I call the Habitat Gardening live community as it builds also the Riot Squad? Because I would like that. I think we'll do that as well. But if you original Riot Squatters have any objections, let me know, and I will take that on board. I'm just having a look at my Twitter while we go as well. Biodiversity Council. 45 minutes ago, I am going to like that, and I'm going to repost it. Biodiversity Council. The science is clear, Tanya Plibersek. Without political will to immediately stop logging swift parrot habitat, the recovery plan is window dressing, a predictable extinction. You committed to nature positive. Time to walk the talk. And that's the Biodiversity Council, also tagged in the swift parrot, Dr. Swifty. I'll be reaching out to Dr. Swifty this week and hopefully getting him on as well, because I think he's a really important voice, not only for the Swift Parrot, but for someone who has, well, the difficult bird group as well at ANU. So much really valuable work. So, yep, I am. I know it's at Team Swift Parrot. Sorry, they tagged not Dr. Swift Parrot, but I think Team Swift Parrot is the same people. So, no comments apart from Stan's about podcasts. Because I'm really torn about putting these long live streams, other than the ones featuring Holly, into the podcast feed. And also, if I don't get around to posting them almost straight away, they feel stale in the podcast feed. I'd be interested in your comments about that, because and anything that I did before I went away with Millie, I think is really stale now. Like that's 4 months ago. So that loss of momentum has been really critical. And I certainly wasn't able to produce what I thought I was going to be able to do while I was away. And I certainly don't regret going away. It was a great experience, and Millie's done great stuff, as you're all aware. But in terms of what the impact that it had on the bird emergency, I think it was quite significant, and which is why I've taken a bit of a break to reassess and to try and recalibrate what I want to do, because you've got to keep enjoying it. I've been doing it. I think I did my first interviews for the bird emergency in 2017, but I don't think I actually posted anything until 2020. So I can't remember exactly the dates, but I've been toying around with what to do for a long time, and I've also got to take on some paid work coming up soon, and going back into that, more into that space, so that I can actually develop a little bit more, go into to make the live streams a bit more entertaining, and also I want to take them on the road so I can actually go and do events. Like I'd love to do the Australian Ornithological Conference. I'd love to be able to take the bird emergency to events like that, do live streams and interviews, and sort of do some fun kind of sessions at events. But that requires a bit of financial input, and I've kind of let this while I was away. I let the side down with the membership only shows. So again, they're going to start up. Probably not this week. I won't prepare one well enough for this week, but next week for sure. Shane, hello, Shane. Shane's with us. Weekend camping at Scribbly Gum Camps. We had multiple gangs with us every day. That's fantastic. Scribbly Gum Camps. I don't know about that. So maybe you can, maybe Shane, if you could message me or email me some of that info after today. Is it something that I could, I should chase up? Shane says he listens on Spotify. That's terrific. Now, Shane, the question that I've got for you guys, because you're obviously listening to the podcast, but also being involved in the live streams. Do these longer form live stream shows, should I be dumping them into the podcast feed, or should the podcast feed stick to the format that I have built in the podcast feed over all of those episodes? Because there's sort of two schools of thought, and I really value what you guys think as consumers and as participants, what you think, because I get pretty split. I get really split opinions But the podcast is a really great way of introducing new people are still finding me in the podcast. I must admit, I haven't looked at the stats for the podcast for a long time, but I'm pretty sure seems to be holding up pretty well, and the seems to be growing just about everywhere. But I haven't been putting out enough new stuff. You need to keep continually putting new things in the feed for people to stick with it or to keep finding it. I think I mentioned too. I am working on pushing into Substack. So I'm uploading old episodes and I'm trying to bring them in with a new introduction, so people understand why old material is going into the feed to get them into it. And then I want to be bringing new episodes in, and I'll be re-interviewing as many of the people as I can from the first 50 episodes of the Bird Emergency to get updates. And also, a lot of them have moved on to new projects. So, and hopefully you'll find that useful as well. And they will go into where I was pushing for the membership, Substack and Buy Me a Coffee, all the things that sort of lost momentum while I was away. So those things are all here to be done, and I want to do them in a way that's sustainable, interesting for me and interesting for all of you as well. So yeah, certainly please give me your thoughts on that. And really the first thing I really want to know is, do you think that these, like the audio versions of the live streams, belong in the podcast feed? The stats don't tell me that story clearly. It's really, but gee, a lot of people listen. A lot of people really, and especially the episodes with Holly. I think that, they've been really lots of fun to do, and I know Holly's had a lot of fun doing them. And yeah, if they're a way to get more people thinking about birds and conservation and even just bird watching or whatever, I want to push that along. So anyway, Shane, if you're listening now, I really do want to get your thoughts on this. Naomi, Stan, as you're doing, working on the paper, what do you think? Does this stuff should it be in the podcast feed, or should these longer form things go hang on the other platforms where people are sort of more used to this stuff? And should I just keep the podcast feed with the interview an expert, talk about the bird and the project, and go? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will only publish this stuff to everywhere other than. I don't know. But I'm really interested in your thoughts. I'm asking and going on the same thing for 10 minutes. We'll just let that percolate for a few minutes. I do want to encourage you to check out theguardian.com, the Australian version of The Guardian, for the Bird of the Week, Bird of the Year, beg your pardon, or Bird of the 2 years, since it is a biannual event. Encourage you to go for the swift parrot. Look, it can't do any harm, can it? And bring the swift parrot to the attention of hopefully many, many more people in the country. Okay, yep. Sorry, Shane, I was just reading your comment. I'll put it up for everyone else. Shane enjoys the format we presently use on the audio podcast. And yeah, about an hour, 90 minutes. 90 minutes is where those interviews generally run to by the time I've asked the bird emergency questions and things like that. So yeah, I think we'll go there. Stan, I think. Now, Stan, let me know. Is your question, can I just use the audio of these live streams and put them out as podcasts? And the answer is yes, I do that. And I had been doing that. I had been putting out most of these shows just audio only into the podcast feed. And some people like them. I know they're a really good tool for discovery. That was how, Monday with Holly has been really good like that. And I think the best ever episode of the Bird Emergency was actually, I think still has been the degrowth episode with Martin Ty. But the people who like the politics and the issues stuff, I think, are very different to the people who like just the hardcore bird nerd original Bird Emergency podcast. And that's why a lot of the times now I only promote the Bird Emergency rather than the Bird Emergency podcast, because the Bird Emergency has become a bigger thing than just the podcast in terms of who I'm speaking with, week to week. I know there are people in the live stream audience and consuming on YouTube who are not consuming the podcast. So, which is a good thing. Yeah. So anyway, just thoughts on that. I might actually start a second feed for the podcast. I don't know, or I don't really want to do that because that diminishes the audience, and it's hard enough to establish an audience in the podcast market without splitting it up again. Yeah, I don't know. And again, we're only talking a very small sample too. I might do a poll in the podcast feed and get people's thoughts. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that's just to sort of bring you in on what's going to be happening. So the gardening stuff and the habitat gardening stuff, I really want to focus a lot on that, but I wanted to, even though I'll still stream it to the Bird Emergency YouTube and Facebook, the plan would be that within a year that it only goes out to the habitat gardening outlets, meaning I can keep and when we would then talk about habitat gardening on the Bird Emergency would be more in the format of these Monday shows with Holly, and whenever we're talking about, or whoever it is, sitting in the seat, but talking about urban birds and those kind of projects. I mean, that would I think is a logical fit into that thing, and perhaps, the Mondays. The Saturday habitat gardening, and I'm all tempted also that maybe I'm depending on the take up. Habitat gardening might warrant itself twice a week, and maybe there would be like a guest host with me in one time slot, and then maybe it might be question and answer and talking more about process in gardening, like site analysis and pests and diseases and species selection, all those kind of really practical things. So I might split it. I don't know. We'll just see. I'm open to anything that people want or respond to, really. Does that make sense? Folks? All right. I feel like I'm just going around and around and around and thinking out loud as we go. Did I save up my revelation? What else did I say we would do today? I've asked you about gifts. Also, recommendations for tours or locations and things like that as we build into the sort of Tour Guide Thursday, which is my daggy caption. I think I've got a massive list of people for Photography Friday that I'm reaching out to, but I am going to be starting out with some people that you may have seen in comments or interacting on the show in the run up to Christmas. So we'll do some more local places, and I'm reaching out to some of the people who said no in the past 2 years, and we'll get those. Hopefully, get some of them to say yes. So yeah, gifts, books, tour recommendations, and if you've got questions of a gardening nature, you can put those into me too, and that'll makes it easy to prepare a show. If you've got 3 or 4 questions that have come in, it makes it much easier to prepare a show than Naomi has just said she's going to heaps of places. Am I after locations if they're good or not just tours? I tell you what, Naomi, any location that you can talk about and just talk about your experience. And it doesn't have to be a hot spot for birding as far as I'm concerned. A lot of times just access, the ease of finding a place or the ease of parking, or particularly, is it a good place to take, do you think it'd be a good place to take kids? Or if someone's on the road, a lot of people are on the road with a pet, and a lot of places you can't go if you've got your dogs with you. So there's all sorts of issues about getting out and going birding. So yeah, any of those things is good. Locations and bird lists. Well, I'll tell you something I tried to get off the ground last year and I didn't get any takers. But what I would like to do is I'd like to be in the situation where I can go down the street early on a Sunday morning, go and get a couple of Vietnamese rolls or some croissants or something and bring them home and get my coffee and have my Sunday morning treat and do a show talking about people's bird lists, their home patch list or their favourite spot list. And I wanted to call that the Sunday sessions, but and I want to do that perhaps with some previous guests and do it as a bit of a catch up. I don't know if there's an appetite for that, but I thought that might be the kind of show that I might like to listen to if I was looking for something a little bit different and a little bit more relaxing that I might be able to do, maybe listening while you're in the garden, or maybe, if you've got kids and you've got to go for weekend sport and you're sitting in the car watching 9-year-olds tackle each other every 15 metres at football, or if you're watching netball, if you've got, maybe you got 3 kids in different age groups and you're stuck at the netball courts somewhere, and you're there from early in the morning till early in the afternoon. So I just thought that might be a way to do something a little bit different, but also keeping the focus on birds. And Naomi, really interested in people's lists, home patch lists, and talking about change. We've sort of covered that before, but I'd like to do it as a way to catch up with a lot of people I've spoken to before, and remember some of the people I've spoken to in years gone by were right at the beginnings of their career, and I'd like to see how they've gone on or whether they've been able to stick with it, and just talk about, make it more of a friendly chat kind of thing and focus it loosely on birds, and loosely on bird watching and the idea of listing. So yeah, Naomi, I'm open to anything, and yeah, I mean, these things have a sort of way of finding their own form once you start them. I'll do what people enjoy and what people want to hear, and best use my talents. And my talents are best about talking and extracting information out of people who may not be natural performers, and getting some information out there. And yeah, yeah. So that's where my thinking thought of is. And please, anytime you've got suggestions for who to speak to or what to talk about, or news items that I may have missed, again, always, and it's easy to reach out, any of the socials or through the email. I don't care which email address you use. Pretty much, I think anything, if you put anything in at thebirdemergency.com, I think I've got a catch-all. So I think if you put Harry Potter at thebirdemergency.com, I think that would reach me. Why don't you try it? I think I would get that email. I think I've got it structured like that. Naomi, what have you got? Naomi would love to hear bird lists of everyone. Yeah, I like talking about it. Croissant sounds wonderful too. Perhaps Stan and I might not be tucking into croissants, but maybe something a little bit. Certainly my Vietnamese rolls with tofu and whatnot might be the go for me. But yeah, I'd like to sit down with a coffee and talk about people's lists, and also catch up. And also, if I'm pushing into a new platform like Substack, which is really more about authors and whatnot, well, I want to make a point of talking to people who are authors in this space too, and pushing into that. So there's a whole lot of things I want to try and branch out into doing, and also I've got to keep it interesting for me too, because I do want to produce more stuff rather than less stuff, and just so you know, I mean, if you're consuming these platforms, you probably know that, but the way to grow on some of these platforms is just to continually be in the face, live talking. The podcast doesn't work that way. People only really want to hear me once a week in the podcast, but on the live streams and YouTube and Twitch particularly, people, if they want to watch you, they're happy to watch you every day. So, and that builds your audience by being there every day. And, building an audience isn't about making money or anything like that. In this niche, it's about visibility, and it's about influencing people to make decisions and to take action. And that's, unashamedly, that's always been what the show has been about: awareness, and also encouraging people to take action and to support people who are taking action. That's what it's always been about. Yeah. So, all right. Well, what do we got to? Geez, 3.5 hours. I'm starting to feel like Hassan Piker, who does like 3, 4, 5, 10-hour streams on Twitch. I haven't got the throat to be doing that without playing clips and things like that. I might say too, a lot of what I would like to do with, if I do a Sunday show, geez, what a social life I have, right? But if I was going to do a Sunday show, maybe Sunday afternoon show or Sunday mid-morning show, a lot of that would be clips, reacting to clips or reviewing clips in this space. Maybe some funny bird clips, but more likely other conservation-related stuff that I see. So again, if you've got things that you would like to talk about or think I should see, that would be the go. Naomi, did I put this up? I can't remember. We'll put it up again. Naomi would like to see bird lists, and yeah, croissants. Very good. Can you guys hear the person either cutting or drilling? It's probably coming through my microphone. One of my neighbours. I'm not sure if it's my housemate. I can't tell. It's either my housemate in the shed or one of my neighbours doing handy-manny thing at the moment. All right, folks, I think that's where we'll round it out. TheGuardian.com. I've got that link, haven't I? Let's have a look at that again one more time. There we are. TheGuardian.com/environment/2023. I'm pretty sure if you go to the Guardian site, and which I am on now, where do they have? They have a search function in their header below the ad for some electric car. If you just type in Bird of the Year, I'm pretty sure that'll take you there. Nominate your favourite for the shortlist. I think the shortlist is out. Let me refresh this. Take part. I think I have to register. I do. I'll do it. Oh no, I'll do it later. Oh, there's a really good story actually out in the Guardian. Oh, there we go. There we go. There's a really good in my related stories on the Guardian at the moment. There's a story about the bar-tailed godwit, which is really important. Naomi, a comment. I just got a notification about that. There's one about the satin bowerbird, and somebody, what's your favourite bird? It's almost impossible to answer. I'm actually going to spend a bit of time reading the Guardian today. We got some comments. Okay, what do we got? What Stan said. I just did a short yesterday about the French pastisserie that opened on Kangaroo Island. Sounds wonderful. That was going to be my next question. Plenty of delicious croissants. I am glad to hear that. Naomi, what have you put? Thanks, Grant. Have a throat soothing cuppa. I'm actually going to go and cook up some red lentil dal, a spicy red lentil dal with a little bit of coconut milk. So I'm going to cook that up for lunch. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. I'm guessing that you gave us a Facebook love. Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Reminder, no matter what platform you're listening or watching on, it's always nice to get a little nice comment or something here and there. So always enjoy getting your reaction. So great. Oh, I just got a totally different good news on the phone from someone else. That's good. Okay. Have I forgotten anything? Folks? Anything you want me to update you or talk about? Let's look at the calendar for this week. I will be doing a live stream during the week. Not sure whether it'll be Wednesday or Thursday. We might revisit the Dawn Chorus, and I may do a members only show, but I'll have to think about what we would talk about, depending on if I get some people saying, yeah, sure, I'll come on the show. I haven't got anyone lined up for this week. I do have some tentatives for next week. So anyway, I'll want to get back into that. Just rest assured that I do want to get the member shows rolling again a couple of times a month. Dawn Chorus again. We might leave Dawn Chorus till next week so that I can actually go out and record some. Oh, what's that bird? Oh, it's the sparrow. Looked funny. I thought, gee, that's a new bird on the fence, but it's just the way the light has given it a yellowish tinge. I thought, gee, what's that? Anyway, it's just sparrows. Where was I? Yeah, so I think we will be producing something every day, and I will be running replays of a lot of the shows, particularly with Ricky and Holly, and to keep people interested. And a lot of the ones that I can't actually directly rebroadcast, as we come into the Christmas period, I will be doing, like I did last year, interactive replays where I'll actually be on the stream and we can chat, but I'll just be playing previous interviews and streams. And there's a few that that I would always like to resurface. And some of the ones that I only did as audio in the old days, before the live streaming was so easy, I want to talk to those people again and do the live stream. It just to introduce those people like Steph Burrell, Kat Young, and of course Claire Greenwell. But a lot of these people now, well, not those two specifically, but some people now working in government jobs and they aren't allowed to do without special permission and whatnot to actually come on the show. So anyway, we will wait and see what comes along. But I'll take you all along for the ride. Take the Riot Squad along for the ride. Yeah. Hope the paper tomorrow is a ripper, Stan. Do follow Stan on Kangaroo Island TV on YouTube. And remember, of course, if you are watching on a different platform, if you subscribe to the Bird Emergency on YouTube, and it's easy to find, thebirdemergency.com/YouTube will take you direct there. There's going to be exclusive stuff on YouTube, exclusive stuff on Twitch, and less reliant on, or I will be putting less effort into the X or the Unbirded app. Was it you, Naomi, that called it that, the Unbirded app, and I didn't get it? Just a lot more. I'm reinvigorated now. I think I was just waiting for the footy finals to finish and to see if I was going to be happy of the footy finals. So, thanks again, everyone. I always love doing the live streams. It's fun catching up with everyone, and it also means I can do social interaction without having to go out and do social interaction and risking catching COVID or something again. Or not again. I haven't had it, and I want it to stay that way. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy your week. Look forward to catching up with you either next Monday in this time slot. Oh, letting you know too, Holly will be back on the 16th. So we've actually got another week of me, and then Holly's back on the 16th of October at midday in Australian time, Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Remember, we are now on Daylight Savings Time here in my time zone. So you may need to adjust your listening habit by an hour to find us. Haven't got Ricky locked in. I'm hoping Ricky is with us next week, but we'll chase that up. Chase that up with an email again later today, and I'll let you know. And I'm working through this massive list of people who I want to talk to on my whiteboard. I'll just keep sending out the emails, and hopefully people will be coming on and sharing their birdie love with us soon. Where's the off button? I'm on the wrong screen. Thanks, everyone. See you later. Oh, thebirdemergency.com/live if you want to know easily what's coming up. Thebirdemergency.com/live. I'll be updating that page very shortly. So first port of call for all the links and for what's coming up. That's the easiest way. See ya.